Hello, everyone. It is I, Ryan, also known as thelovebat, bringing you a nice, good old constructed Magic the Gathering Arena deck, which is sort of a black-white splashing some green and red, and a sort of mishmash of cleric type cards, and a deck I would call Cleric Smeric. And that's just kind of a creative name I gave it when I first created the deck, and I just kind of, stuck with it. And it's been probably my favorite deck to play in Magic the Gathering Arena as far as the constructed format goes in Standard. And I first created this deck around when Zendikar Rising became a new format, which introduced lots of cleric cards. And so I really liked the idea of this deck, and I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons, off and on for a long time, or related sort of video games as well. But 5th edition D&D I've been into for the past several years, and clerics are a pretty cool class thematically and mechanically and everything. And the cleric kind of cards that were introduced in Zendikar Rising made this kind of deck idea more of a reality, and it gave you lots of a good baseline to work with. And ever since then, more clerics have come in along the way, or other good cards for the life gain sort of synergies that make this a really good deck idea, in my opinion. One card that we are missing out on that I used to play with in this deck quite a bit is Conclave Mentor, which is a 2/2 green-white sort of cleric card that was introduced a couple years back in the 2021 Magic the Gathering set. That's what the M21 means. And so it was a good card because lots of these cleric cards that we have end up putting +1/+1 counters on themselves or a different creature. So a lot of these cards were very good in synergy with the Conclave Mentor, and would be very good as far as synergizing with pumping up the clerics in turn 2, turn 3, etc. Depending on what the order that you got your clerics out. So if you got like a turn 1 cleric out, like a Lunarch Veteran wasn't really what I used to play with, but it was a more recent cleric that I got in as a 1-drop. There used to be a 1-drop called Speaker of the Heavens, and it was a very, very good card that was very good for either mono-white aggro, or very good in a cleric deck because you can play this out turn 1 and then get out Luminarch Aspirant turn 2, pump this thing up, gain life, and just get some very big threats out at some point with different angel creatures. And unfortunately, like cards like Speaker of the Heavens and the Conclave Mentor, they were only available for a little while to be used with the cleric deck before they got shifted out of Standard. And there was only about a 1 or 2 month window of time where they could be in the same deck as, say, a Trelasara, for example, that was in the Adventures of the Forgotten Realms set, which is a very good cleric card, but unfortunately it wasn't around long enough to really make much use of the cleric deck, while some of the other awesome cleric cards were kind of still in Standard. And another cleric card that used to be in this deck was the 3-mana legendary creature Veto, and it's another one of the clerics that can give you lifelink, which is very good with the cleric life gain synergies. This would be in the deck if it was still in Standard, but ever since it was rotated out of Standard, I can't really use it in my cleric decks anymore for the Standard format. But at one point in time, it was in my cleric deck, and even when it was still in Standard, I decided to go with the +1/+1 counter synergies instead, and other ways to gain life, such as the Null Priest of Oblivion and other sorts of spells that can get you life in some way, such as like the Righteous Valkyrie or other cleric cards that can gain you life when a creature enters the battlefield. Core Celebrant, a 3-drop cleric, is also another decent card for this kind of deck, and it was also in the Zendikar Rising set was very good in the draft format when you did Zendikar Rising drafts. If you did the cleric deck, this was an essential card. So back when Zendikar Rising was new, this is also a very good cleric card. It can help stop aggro on the sort of backswing whenever you attack in with clerics and they don't block. Then they might be tempted to attack back into you to go and deal damage back to you and try and race you a bit. Core Celebrant is very good against aggro decks, so it's a viable card. Not as good as Righteous Valkyrie, however, which is just an all-around better card. Being 2/4 flying baseline makes it better, and then you get lots of other secondary effects here for gaining life, and gaining life is much better with the toughness value because most of the creatures that we have are going to end up being able to get in with 2 or more toughness, which makes it better than the Core Celebrant. So that's just sort of the history of the deck. Sort of the general baseline of how it all started, and then now this is what the deck is looking like now. And I'm recording this the evening of August 30th, which is going to be just before a lot of these Cleric cards that I have will end up rotating out of standard with their format of cards, or their different sets of cards that rotate in and out. And so many of the cards from Zendikar Rising, Kaldheim, and I think even Adventures in the Forgotten Realms will be rotated out of standard, and so you're going to have to kind of adjust the Cleric decks, because at least half of this deck is going to be missing when it rotates out with new cards. So that's unfortunate, but that's why I'm recording this now before the standard rotates, and I can show you guys this deck at least one time to show you how it does in action. So as far as the cards that we have in the deck now, as it stands, we have lots of fixing with the mana base to make sure that we can go ahead and splash cards like Sacred Fire, which is good for general removal. It also deals with Planeswalkers, which is notable. It can also hit to the face of an opponent. And you can also flash it back, so that way if you discard it with, say, a March of Otherworldly Light, then down the road, if you do get your red mana down the line, and then you can occasionally cast this from the graveyard with the flashback cost to get some value out of it after discarding it with this. So March of Otherworldly Light and March of Wretched Sorrow, very good removal and interaction, and this deck in general has lots of good removal and interaction type cards, along with a couple of board sweepers. Crippling Fear is a good board sweeper that can get past things like Indestructible for certain kinds of creatures, like the green Toski card that's about 4 mana and as Indestructible. Excuse me. Talking a little bit fast for myself here. But yeah, Crippling Fear is good. It gets around Indestructible, it gets around Hexproof, and because we're using all Cleric cards for our creatures, mostly anyway, it means that we can get away with using this quite a bit. The only creatures that would be on the field that would get hurt by this would be either the Legion Angel, which is just a good value engine for us to get out creatures onto the battlefield, and then we also have the Valkyrie Harbinger, which can create angels. However, the angels that are created from the Valkyrie Harbinger here would not end up being killed by the Crippling Fear, only the Legion Angel. But Legion Angel is just a good value card, and it's very good to be able to get it out and get yourself some more gas to work with. And with the Righteous Valkyrie, you can still gain life when bringing out the Legion Angel. So you can still gain life by getting Legion Angel out, then get another one out, and you just keep on getting in more gas if the opponent has removal to try and take care of some of your creatures. And it's also very good against like opposing board wipes, so that way you have at least 1 or 2 cards left in hand to keep playing out to see if you can get in there for the win. Farewell is another good board sweeper that we have that was in the Kamigawa set, and this is a very good card just for, in general, exile-based removal is very, very good. It means that you can deal with opposing decks that have lots of sort of graveyard interaction, or maybe they have the sort of disturb value from some of the more recent sets. So the more recent sets have had some cards that have like disturb and other ways to play things back from the graveyard, such as flashback, as the Sacred Fire here has. So Farewell, exile-based board sweeper, can be very, very good. And if we just want to get rid of, say, an enchantment or other things like that that aren't creatures, then this is also a way to deal with that in the late game if we have no other option in our hand, such as, say, the March of Otherworldly Light, which can go ahead and get rid of artifacts and enchantments. So if we don't have this, Farewell is a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments and have some interaction for that. Heliod's Intervention at one point in time was a good way of dealing with artifacts and enchantments that were on the field, since you could also gain life of it as sort of a secondary effect that goes well with the Cleric deck and pumping up your creatures with +1/+1 counters, such as the Voice of the Blessed and Cleric of Life's Bond. But over time, it wasn't quite the value card I was looking for. There weren't quite as many, at least back when it was still in standard, enough artifacts and enchantment-based decks to really find it worthwhile. Nowadays, there are a good number of enchantment-based decks that I've faced, and so Heliod's Intervention and Historic, for example, would end up being a good card, I bet. But in standard, we have to have like Farewell and Crippling Fear, sort of the board sweepers to work with, and to be able to deal with multiple sorts of permanents that are on the field. So Farewell, very good card, and again, exile-based removal also gets around Indestructible, which can be relevant in some cases, and it also gets around Hexproof as well with both this and Crippling Fear. So those are kind of helpful to go ahead and deal also with the decks that generate lots of tokens, such as, say, the Scoot Swarm decks that 3 mana green rare that was introduced in Zendikar Rising, which has been the bane of many decks in the past, and also would cause my computer to slow down like the Dickens, and it would just create out like a million bajillion tokens, and by the time they had a dozen tokens or so out, you would either need a board sweeper or you need a way to fly over the top for the win, and we don't have too many flyers in this deck, so it's kind of hard for us to do that. So we just go ahead and use board sweepers in the late game and hope we draw into them, and buy time to draw into them if we're going up against a deck that's trying to go wide with lots of token generation. And then in the early game, we have the Cleric class, which is good for life gain, giving more +1/+1 counters, which is another reason why I would have liked it to be able to play with the Conclave Mentor, so that way the +1/+1 counter synergies could end up being maximized and being double as good. But it's still very good as is in this sort of deck, and it's something that we can play out on turn 1, along with the Lunarch Veteran, which can gain us 1 life whenever we have a creature come into the battlefield, which is very often. And then March of Otherworldly Light and March of Wretched Sorrow are just good removal spells. They can deal with lots of things in the field, and we can discard cards that we can't currently play, such as maybe the double black for Crippling Fear, then the Sacred Fire and the Trelasara here, which we're splashing for. If we can't play them, then we can discard them to the March of Otherworldly Light and get some value off of them. Then later on in the game, even if we discard any cards with the March of Wretched Sorrow and the March of Otherworldly Light, then we can either do things such as playing the Lunarch Veteran from the graveyard with the Disturb cost. We can do this with Flashback. And then we have Cleric class with the level 3 ability, and then the Null Priest of Oblivion with the Kicker cost that can go ahead and get things from the battlefield or play them from the battlefield and kind of play them out. So we have some good graveyard value in this deck, so we can get as much value as we can to keep on getting action onto the field, because this is somewhat of an aggro deck that's trying to go ahead and be built to last against the mid-range and late-game decks, as well as the decks that try and go wide and will just try and outrace you to the finish. So cards like this, and also cards like this with the Null Priest of Oblivion, can end up helping you get graveyard value, and so even if they use removal to get rid of some of your creatures, then later on, if you have enough mana, you can go ahead and use these 2 cards to get creatures back from the battlefield, and just try and get yourself some more gas after playing out so many creatures and such. So really like that. And then you also have the Voice of the Blessed and Cleric of Life's Bond that end up getting bigger as you gain life. So this can give you life when a cleric comes onto the battlefield, so that's one way to gain life and activate this by itself, and then it pumps up when that happens. So it's a very built-in sort of 2-for-1 value card that can pump itself and make it bigger. And then this can get bigger whenever you gain life, and it's whenever you gain life and not just once per turn like the Cleric of Life's Bond, which is one big advantage that it has over that card. The disadvantage is that it is double white, so we're not always going to be able to play it out on curve, but it's a very good card in this deck, and if we get enough +1/+1 counters on it, then it can be very, very strong just getting in there and keeping attacking. And then Null Priest of Oblivion, even if you don't play it with its kicker cost, is still very, very good to get it out on curve, because then you can go ahead and attack with it on turn 3. Maybe by then you've gotten a Voice of the Blessed or a Cleric of Life's Bond onto the battlefield, and since it has Menace, they can't single block it, so you might be able to get in there on, say, turn 3. If they have only one blocker onto the field, then they can't block it at all. So, and it has lifelink, so once it gets in there for damage, you can end up pumping out a Cleric on turn 3, such as Voice of the Blessed or Cleric of Life's Bond, make them even stronger, and then on turn 4, you can be really cooking with heat and getting lots of aggro in there. Luminarch Aspirant is another great turn 2 play for this deck. It's been a very common card and constructed for many years now, ever since it came out, but with the +1/+1 counters being sort of a common thing for this deck, I like to use it a lot with the Conclave Mentor back when that was in Standard, and now it's more a matter of just getting it out on turn through, and then aggroing the opponent out a little bit by just playing other Cleric cards. And it's also a good card that can go ahead and eat the opponent's removal, so this is usually a card that an opponent will think is too strong to leave out into the field for very long. So the opponent can end up usually using removal on this, and then it buys the way for other Cleric cards to get out there and have them not get eaten by removal right away. So that's another good thing about this card. Then for our 3-drops, we have Righteous Valkyrie, which I somewhat mentioned before with the Angel cards. But it's either Angels or Clerics, so it's very, very good in our deck. So it benefits from basically all of the cards that we can get onto the field, which includes the Legion Angels and then the Angels from Valkyrie Harbinger. Whenever Valkyrie Harbinger ends up getting the Angel out into the field, then it ends up getting the life gain from this, which triggers more life gain and yada yada. So it's a very, very strong effect once you get out a Righteous Valkyrie and then you get into the late game with the Valkyrie Harbinger. Two good Angel Clerics that can just sort of win the game by themselves if we get to that point and they haven't been removed from the field yet. And then if you have 7 or more life, more than your starting life total, then creatures get pumped so big that by that point in the game you might have already won, unless the opponent has like a board sweeper, like a Meat Hook Massacre might be able to get them out of it, or a Farewell, or maybe a Doomscar, things like that. So board sweepers are one of the few ways that opponents might be able to deal with our deck. But even if they have a board sweeper, we have the Wandering Emperor that we can hold in our hand, and then we can play it out when the timing is right to either remove a creature from the battlefield that they attacked in with the previous turn, or we can get out there and we can give something first strike by surprise, and maybe we have an opponent that blocks one of our clerics to trade off with it, or chump block. And then they might also do, like, say, a double block on Null Priest of Oblivion. So if they did that, then we can play out the Wandering Emperor and flash it in and maybe give a cleric first strike, maybe force the opponent to lose a creature or two to that. And then we can also gain life with the -2 ability, which is great for our deck. And is all in all great when we can go ahead and use that also as a combat trick for making blocks on defense. And we can pump up a Cleric of Life Spawned or a Voice of the Blessed with the life gain aspect of this. So you can use this as a surprise way to either gain value, remove creatures, or you can gain life to pump up your other clerics, and you can also gain life to maybe get the 27 life needed for the Righteous Valkyrie. So it can be very, very strong in this deck. It's also just good instant speed interaction, which I like to have lots of in this deck. Poison the Cup. Poison the Cup is more instant speed interaction, similar to the March cards and the Sacred Fire. And it's a very good card to foretell turn 2 if we don't have any plays. Then turn 3, if the opponent plays out a strong 3-drop or 4-drop, then we can use Poison the Cup on them, and then we can try and make sure that we get some good draws on the next few turns. And then similarly, Vanishing Verse is a very good instant speed removal spell. It's very good against enchantments and planeswalkers that end up being monocolored, such as, say, double colored, they have to play out, say, double red, double white, etc. So if it's a card like that, then Vanishing Verse ends up being very good to exile them. And since we can do it at instant speed, we can do it at the end of the opponent's turn. Then we can save our mana for the next turn, and then make sure that the opponent thinks that, they think that they have a good turn coming up, but then we can use this at the end of their turn to get rid of something, and we can kind of clear the way for ourselves, or to make it to where they're not going to be able to snowball things with an enchantment or, say, a planeswalker that's on the field. And then finally we have the good old, it's just the 4-drops, and then we have 6-drops here. We don't have any 5-drops in this deck. But for the most part, the Legion Angel, which is the thing that's sort of the odd man out usually in this kind of deck, the reason that we have it in here is not because it's a cleric, obviously, but it flies. And it also gets value with Righteous Valkyrie, which is okay. And then we end up being able to just get ourselves some more gas for free. So even if the opponent has removal for this, we end up having another Legion Angel in our hand, and it adds more value on the sideboard here, where we can just play a Legion Angel, we can get in some more of them. And even if it's just a regular creature, the Lunarch Veteran still gets us extra life if the Legion Angel comes onto the field, so that's a good built-in engine. And then Legion Angels, we can also go ahead and just discard one of them to, say, a March of Otherworldly Light, if we can't have the double white to play one out, for example, or if we just need to go ahead and remove something very quickly, and it's a very high mana drop that we can't pay for by ourselves, but maybe we can discard a Legion Angel to it, and then we can go ahead and use March of Otherworldly Light to exile something. So very, very strong to just play, lots of white cards here, and then the occasional splashing card. Trellisara is being splashed in this deck because it's just a very good cleric card that also gets a scry value. And it's also similar to the Voice of the Blessed, where it gains life, or it gets a +1/+1 counter every time that you gain life. So being able to go ahead and do that is very, very strong, and gain life a lot on a turn means you can pump it up. And then you also get the scry value, so if you end up wanting to avoid Flood, it's a very good card for that. And you can also discard it to the March of Otherworldly Light if you don't have a way to play it out anytime soon. So that's the deck in general. The mana base is just lots of pathways, lots of dual lands to go ahead and splash some of the cards that we're doing. All of them are untapped mana, essentially, except for these 3 Glade cards, basically. Yeah, the Overgrown Farmland, Sundown Pass, and the Deathcap Glade. These are basically cards that we go ahead and we can get them out on turn 3, and then maybe turn 1 if we don't have a 1-drop in hand to play. So they're very good dual lands, and we try and make sure as many of our lands are sort of untapped lands as possible. So that way we can go ahead and fix, along with making sure that we end up having a good curve out. This is a deck that really wants to be able to curve out with 1-drop, 2-drop, and then possibly 3-drop if we're lucky. So in all, very, very good deck. I find it very fun. And then as far as the land count, we have about 23 lands, if I remember correctly. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and then the 3 dual lands for 23. So we have lots of pathways and lots of dual lands in this deck, so it is a bit of a wild card intensive deck to get the pathways for it. But overall, it's been a very fun deck, and we have lower amounts of lands in this deck because we have a very low curve, and we just want to keep on drawing action and making sure that we have lots of plays to play out in this deck. So that's the deck building aspect of it, and I'll go ahead and get to some games here real quick, and then we'll show you how the deck does. Alright, game 1 of the video. Let's go ahead and see how our Cleric deck does once we're on the clock. Live, as it were. Let's see. Alright, well, looks like our opponent conceded, so yep, we'll go ahead and skip this one, even though it was a pretty good looking opening hand, so I would have kept that opening hand and would have probably been in good shape, but let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. Alright, take 2. Let's see if this opponent decides to not leave the match right away this time. Alright, so we have a bit of an awkward hand, but we have all of the colors of the lands that we would want. We have a turn 2 Aspirant, and we can possibly discard the Valkyrie Harbinger to the March of Otherworldly Light to get rid of something on the field. And we're on the draw, so we have a chance to draw into something since we don't have too many lands in this deck, so I'm going to go ahead and keep this. It is a bit of a slow hand. We aren't really curving out the way that we'd want to, but that's going to help out our curve immensely now. So I guess the question is, do we want to get rid of the Ascendant Spirit now since it gets bigger later, or do we want to just go ahead and wait? Personally, I think that we should go ahead and get rid of it now. So let's go ahead and do March of Otherworldly Light and discard the Valkyrie Harbinger. Get rid of that now before it becomes a big problem, and we make sure that they don't have the snow mana to do anything with it. So I played a match or two in the past against that this kind of bluish or the snow sort of deck, and it became a big problem later on in the match. So I want to make sure to take the opportunity to deal with that early. So let's go ahead and put out the black pathway here, and then we'll see if we end up getting any red cards here. Next turn we can play out the Overgrown Farmland and it won't be tapped, and then we can play the Voice of the Blessed. We can also just play out another Luminarch Aspirant, since we're not going to be gaining life with what we have in hand. Puppet Stitcher, what does this do? When we cast an instant sorcery spell, create a token. And then it can transform to become even tougher. Alright, so that's going to be interesting, I guess. And so I think we do another Luminarch Aspirant, considering the fact that we can play out Cleric class this turn. So let's go ahead and do that. And I want to play out the Luminarch Aspirant pre-combat, so we get another +1/+1 counter here. And then I want to spread the counters around, so that way if they have removal for one of them, then we still have some value on the other one. Since it seems like they're blue-black, I'm assuming that they have removal in this deck, so they'll probably take care of one of the aspirants and kill it, I imagine. So that could be a Behold the Multiverse or a Poison the Cup. As far as Foretell cards go, we have Poison the Cup in our own deck, so very common removal spell that gets you scry value. And then by foretelling it, to get around the double black cost, because they only have one black mana on the field right now. Alright, so we can play Voice of the Blessed. We can also level up Cleric class, but we aren't really gaining life right now, so we're not going to really be able to gain life and get the +1/+1 counters from that. So I think what we do here is we go ahead and we just play out this as red mana. And then we go ahead and just play this out, and then if we get enough +1/+1 counters on it, then we're going to be able to go ahead and give it flying and vigilance. Yep, as I thought, it's going to be Poison the Cup. And I want to do this pre-combat so that way I can get Voice of the Blessed. Enough +1/+1 counters here so that way I can get flying and vigilance and get in over the top. Yeah, so this does have Decayed. I could have given the Aspirant a +1/+1 counter and attacked in with it, but the better long-term play is probably Voice of the Blessed. And then Cleric class, if we level it up 2 more times, we can get back the Luminarch Aspirant that's in the graveyard. Okay, so let's just go ahead and make them think that we have something in hand here by not leveling up the Cleric class yet. Let's not put all of our eggs in one basket since they have a Foretell card. Let's do this. And then if they have removal to use it on the Aspirant, then we can still attack in with Voice of the Blessed. Could be another Poison the Cup. Yep. So we've eaten a lot of the removal, but we still have one of our better cards that's still on the field here. So then let's level this up, and then next turn we can level it up again to get back a Luminarch Aspirant if we want to. Hopefully I don't flood out on lands here. If they have another removal spell, I'm going to cry. Alright, they had another removal spell and they had what they needed, but Cleric class can get back one of them, and we're flooding out even though we're on 23 lands. Well, such is the way of life. Let's just go ahead and do this, I guess. And we're going to level this up again because we need something on the field. And then I guess it's a matter of preference here. The gamble would be Voice of the Blessed. The better short-term pick would be Aspirant, just to guarantee +1/+1 counters each turn. I think the better chance to win the game is getting out Voice of the Blessed. And plus we also gain life whenever that comes onto the battlefield there, so... Yeah, so you gain life equal to his toughness, and so we're gaining life here to pump up the Voice of the Blessed. I kind of overlooked that second part of the third level up there, or the level 3 cost. Gain life equal to its toughness, so it's a sort of life gain synergy built in, getting from the graveyard, so... And yet another removal spell. Excellent. Just what we wanted to see. Okay, so... I mean, I guess this is the only play that we have. So let's go ahead and play out our Righteous Valkyrie and see if we can kind of stabilize. If they don't have another removal spell and we draw, say, another Cleric, then we could stabilize, but I'm not counting on it at this point. We're up against like an instant sorcery deck that gets lots of value off of just playing removal spells and slowing down the opponent. If I had ways to make something like hexproof or indestructible, then we could be in a lot better shape here, but they are just getting all the removal spells that they need. Alright, so Crippling Fear here is at least going to go ahead and clear the board. It is sorcery speed, so if they have something that can win them the game next turn, then I'm in big trouble. 1 mana isn't enough for any counterspell that can prevent me from playing this out. So do I want to wait another turn and hope that they don't have enough to kill me next turn, because they might just attack in with all their tokens to get me down to very little life. I think we just do this now, and this is why I have the board sweepers in my deck, is to do things like this. And let's just do Cleric. Let me see the battlefield to make sure they don't have any Clerics out into the field. Alright, none of them are Clerics, so let's do Cleric, kill all their stuff, clear the battlefield, and hope for the best. Yeah, I think it was a bit too risky to go ahead and wait on playing this next turn. Alright, so getting rid of Cleric class isn't too bad. Sacred Fire maybe buys us a little bit of time. We can cast it one more time, so yeah, thanks. Alright, so we're just going to have to hold on to the Sacred Fire here and again, hope for the best. Looks like they're flooding out a little bit. Let's go ahead and foretell this. They probably know that it's Poison the Cup. It could also be a Doomscar, so we're in white, so they might think that we have some board sweepers in here, like Doomscar, Farewell, Crippling Fear, so let's go ahead and just play out some more mana, so that way we have a better way of paying the flashback cost in the future for Sacred Fire. Okay, so if they have a counter spell here, we have ways to... We have 2 removal spells that are instant speed, so we can deal with that. Let's just go ahead and use Sacred Fire on it and see if they do anything in response. And if they do anything in response, then we can still use Poison the Cup to kill it. So we do that since Poison the Cup can deal with more things, and we can still play the Sacred Fire for the flashback cost. We have plenty of white, so let's get some more black mana out there, I guess. And pass the turn, and we're in kind of a Mexican standoff here, where we don't want to play creatures, we don't have much to play out into the field, so... I could burn Face of the Sacred Fire, but it's probably not worth it until I have a creature out to try and get them lower than 7. If I can get them down to 2 life, then Sacred Fire does kill them, but they might have a counterspell in their deck for that, so we'll have to see. And we continue to flood out here. We don't really need more than 1 green source. But I will do this just in case I have the... In case I draw Valkyrie Harbinger and I want to go ahead and cast like a Sacred Fire in the same turn, then I have enough mana hopefully for both of them. Looks like they're drawing lots of cards, so let's see what they do here. Eventually they're going to have to play out something. They know that we have both Sacred Fire and a card foretold. So I don't know if they have more Behold the Multiverse or some more Poison the Cup. Maybe they also have... what else could be foretold? Maybe... what's the name of the card? You Saw It Coming, I think, is another foretell card that they might have in their deck. So... let's see what they have. We have 3 removal spells that can deal with various things, so it looks like they're just saving up value here until I play something that's going to die to removal. Another removal / board sweeper, so yeah, we're just going to have to wait here and hope that we find something that we can play onto the field. Maybe they just draw themselves out and deck out before we can win, but... So do we want to play out Trelasara or not? Like, we need something to eat removal. I mean, I can just maybe buy time here and try and wait for them to deck out, and then we can win that way, even though it's going to be a super long game that way. I don't want to play out Trelasara if they just have removal for it, so... I mean, if they're going to keep on not doing anything, then I don't necessarily have to keep doing anything either, so I'm kind of content with this. I know that they probably have removal in hand. Trelasara is going to die to it, so that's why I'm not playing it out yet. I could force them to use the removal, but if they're not going to do anything, I don't really need to do anything either, so that's just the way that I'm looking at it. Okay, so let's just keep on going here. We're going to wait them out a little bit and see how long it takes them to play something here. Delver Secrets. Okay, so look at top card of your library, yada yada. So let's go ahead and that's an end step. Alright, so we can kill it next turn probably. Let's see if any of our creatures survive. So Null Priest of Oblivion does get kicker value. But I think before doing the kicker value, I probably want to go ahead, because we can return something from the graveyard to the battlefield. And so that could be like a Righteous Valkyrie, I guess, which would be good to get in there. And then we can do some other clerics after that. Yep, let's see if we can go ahead and do this with the kicker value. And then we have enough mana to play out some other stuff on top of this. So even if they have some removal. And they could have a counterspell to counter this. If they do, then that's okay. Force them to use it at the very least. And now we can do some other things like the Tralasara. And if they have a counterspell for that, that's okay too. And then we have 3 mana left. I could do Voice of the Blessed, but then I lose the instant speed interaction. I think it's probably worth it at this point to get both of them out there. And then I can Sacred Fire next turn to pump up either of my clerics. Okay, another Sock coming. So we at least have one creature on the battlefield. Now we don't, but that's okay. So we tap out on a lot of stuff, but if they end up playing anything here, we have Farewell that can remove the entire board, so that's going to be okay. 1 damage is kind of irrelevant at this point, so that's fine. They have enough mana for another counterspell if they want it, so I could try and bait out a counterspell so I can get the Null Priest onto the field. Get the Righteous Valkyrie out there maybe, so that way I can try and get some value going. So if I do Null Priest first, then I have enough mana for the Sacred Fire. And then I can pump up maybe a Cleric that we want to get out there onto the field. I guess it depends. Let's go ahead and poison the cut first on the Puppet Stitcher. See if they have a counterspell for this. And then if nothing else, we get the scry value, so that way we don't keep flooding out. And if they counterspell this, they know that we have the Sacred Fire at the very least, so we counter that, or they counter that. Let's go ahead and we'll do the Vanishing Verse now since it's 2 mana. Keep our Farewell and Sacred Fire. Resolve all this. I still get the token, but it can't block, so it's okay. Then after they do all of that, let's play the Null Priest of Kicker. Never mind, I don't have enough mana for that, so I need double black. Apparently the auto tapper kind of screwed me there as far as the black mana goes. Wow. That was 1 black. Alright, so never mind. I guess auto tap wasn't what screwed me there. It's not having enough black mana, so I don't want to play that out without the kicker value, so I guess we just go ahead and pass the turn, I think, and just wait. They know that we have Sacred Fire flashback value, so let's see what they do. Okay, so let's go ahead and Sacred Fire it and see if they have a counterspell here. So they have Infernal Grasp. Okay. So they can Infernal Grasp one of my clerics, but not both of them. So if I do this with Kicker, then I'll get at least 1 cleric onto the field. Infernal Grasp will kill one of them. So which one do I want them to kill, is the question. I think if we just get another Null Priest onto the field, that wouldn't be bad, because Menace means that it's not going to be easily blocked. And then we can just get in there for the win. Yep, I think we just do Null Priest with the Menace and Lifelink. And even if they use removal on the Null Priest that we just played, we're going to have the other one on the field at least, so... Yeah, so I chose the Null Priest because even though they're not going to get bigger by themselves, having the Menace will get past any blocker that they play out this next turn. So we can hopefully get in there for enough to try and whittle them down. Okay, so what do we want to do here? I think we just let that stay. Well, as a sorcery speed board wipe, so we can't do anything about this right now. You still have the Infernal Grasp. Luminarch Aspirant is interesting, but it just dies to removal here, so... Probably want to wait on playing that, since I know what they have. Meathook Massacre ends up gaining themselves... They end up getting us to lose 1 life if this thing dies. Might just have to wait and then get a well-timed farewell in here to try and win. They have 1 removal spell. We need to draw another Cleric or maybe another Null Priest. We have 1 more in the deck, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1, 2. So we've played out 2 Null Priests so far. We have 2 more in the deck that would be very good draws for us. Legion Angel is not bad either, because then if they remove 1, they can't get rid of the next one that I want to play out. And they can't be blocked by the other stuff. So let's go ahead and play out this. See if they remove it. So they'll be able to deal with 1, but they can't deal with all of them. So I think we just keep playing these out. They can use removal on 1 of them if they so wish. If they do, then I play out the Aspirant this turn. And this is why I have the Legion Angels in the deck, so that way I can just get some more gas going. And what I'm going to do here, since they haven't used removal yet, is that if they want to remove the Aspirant, that's okay, because then we'd still end up having Legion Angels in the air to get them here. And they lose life, so they're dead on board next turn. Yep, they gain 1 life, but it doesn't matter, they're dead on board, so let's see what they do. Okay, so they didn't reveal it, so... I don't know if they have an instant sorcery spell anyway. Probably would have been good to reveal it, so that way they get the flying chump blocker, but... Okay, so what do we want to do here? Now, we can get rid of both of the Meathook Massacres, but... I guess it's a legendary enchantment. Alright, Wandering Emperor might be able to get us there. We can just play out a Legion Angel this turn. And then we can Wandering Emperor at the end of the next turn. Create a token, maybe. You can also go ahead and give the Legion Angel a +1/+1 counter as well. I think we just go ahead and play out the Legion Angel here. They already know that we have it, so we might as well play it at least. Then at the end of their turn, we can play out the Wandering Emperor to see if we can try and get in there. Okay, I'm okay with that. They use a removal, but on the other hand, we have this to go ahead and make a creature token, so let's get this out there. Alright, here we go. Just what I'm looking for. So let's pump up our Samurai, and that's good games. So yeah, I think that they were not very confident in a top deck that could deal with a Planeswalker, I would imagine. They had lots of creature removal, but nothing that dealt with Planeswalkers except for, I don't know, does the Meat Hook Massacre deal with Planeswalkers? No, just creatures. So seems like most of their deck had creature-based removal and counter spells, and so they didn't have anything to deal with Planeswalkers, and so at some point in time, I think that they would have ended up just losing to the Wandering Emperor there. So GG's, a very close match that was kind of like a Mexican standoff for much of the match, but a very entertaining match, I must say. All right, so that was a pretty cool match. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right. Match number 2 with a, I don't know, looks like Chinese lettering, I think. Don't quite know for sure, but it looks like it's maybe Chinese and not like Japanese or something. So we're playing against an Asian player here, so what do we do with this opening hand? I think we keep it, because it looks great. And I was looking at the lands first, and then looking at what my plays are here, but this is a really good opening hand. I guess turn 2 Cleric Smeric is the best play, then turn 3 Aspirant, and then we end up having all the colors of mana depending on what we draw. We don't have double whites for the Wandering Emperor yet, but we can discard it to March of Otherworldly Light if we need to, so we're in good shape here, I think. And then let's play out the, I guess the black mana here first. We leave out red out of potential colors here, but it's also something that we don't mind discarding to the March of Otherworldly Light with the Sacred Fires, so it's okay. That was a very good draw with the Righteous Valkyrie that we can do turn 3 now, which is very, very good. I think we go ahead and do the white mana here and Cleric of Life's Bond. We could be up against a cycling deck here, or maybe just a very big multicolor deck here that relies on lots of colors, so it could be maybe a dragon deck. Maybe just some kind of late game deck as well that likes to ramp and then use removal to buy time, maybe. So it could be like maybe another instant sorceries type deck that has lots of high-end cards that the opponent's trying to draw into, maybe, and buy time with like counter spells and interaction. Okay, so Voice of the Blessed is a very good draw, but we don't have the double white for it yet, so we're just going to have to grin and bear with it for now. Double black will end up getting us the ability to cast Crippling Fear or Poison the Cup without the foretelling it, but I think that if we draw Trilasara, getting the green mana for them is going to be more important here. And then let's just play out the Righteous Valkyrie, I think is the best option. Makes the best use of mana. We get it out now. We still pump up the Cleric of Life's Bond, and then we can gain some more life on future turns with the Righteous Valkyrie value. And in general, it's just a flyer that doesn't die to like the damaging removal spells very often that do like 2 or 3 damage. So that could be a you saw it coming probably. There is black mana in here too, so it could be 3 color black, white, blue. So it could be Poison the Cup, it could be Saw It Coming, it could be Behold the Multiverse for card draw, and we got the double white here, so that's very, very good for us. I guess the question is, do we want to do Wandering Emperor now and pump up a creature, or do we want to go ahead and get out the Voice of the Blessed? I think that we just go ahead and do Voice of the Blessed because it'll pump up 2 creatures instead of 1, and it makes use of the double white here, so let's do this. So we get life, we pump up multiple creatures, and we do all the partridge and a pear tree basically, so very good curve out for us and a very good draw getting the white mana just when we needed it. Otherwise Aspirant still would have been a decent play there too. Alright, so that's not terrible. We still have several plays that we can make this next turn here. As I thought, they have interaction to try and curve out here. I think the best play is just to do the Wandering Emperor at the end of their turn. Then again, they are tapped out, and if we do it now, then they can't use a counterspell on it, and there's not much in the way of board sweepers that deal with it. The Farewell doesn't even deal with it, so maybe we just play this out now and make the token. Then the token can get buffed up by the Luminarch Aspirant next turn. There aren't very many pieces of removal out there on these colors that would deal with a Planeswalker. There might be black. There might be some black removal that can deal with anything, like the mono-colored permanent one that we have in our deck. So whenever you attack, okay. Flying Ward 1, whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets connives X for X's number of attacking creatures. Okay, so that makes sense. And it's multicolored, so the Vanishing Verse doesn't get rid of it, but March of Otherworldly Light would. Has Ward 1, so we have to keep that in mind if we want to get rid of it. So it'd be... we have to decide between either the March of Otherworldly Light or playing out the Aspirant this turn. This is exile removal, so we can do it on the following turn and still have enough mana for it. We can also get rid of a wizard class with the Vanishing Verse here. We can maybe do that later, though, and just play this out now while they're tapped out. We do this, that way we can pump up here. I should have pumped up with the Wandering Emperor, too, while I was at it. Well, that kind of sucks. Well, this has Vigilance, so let's play this out. Yeah, I made a mistake there. I should have pumped pre-combat with the Wandering Emperor there, so that was a mistake by me. Now they get the free block in, and I shoulda, coulda, woulda done this pre-combat, but yeah. Oh well, we have Vanishing Verse for the next turn if they play out something else. Doomscar does not kill the Wandering Emperor here, so... okay, so they draw 2 cards for 4 mana, or for whatever mana, 3 mana? Yeah, 3 mana. Whenever you draw a card, +1/+1 counter, target creature, okay. Alright, so if they wanted to go ahead and do the attack here, I think we just do the March of Otherworldly Light in response here. And then we do X3, discard that, take care of that. And yes, I am sure we have enough mana still to pay for that. And then we pay the ward cost. If I have the mana to pay for the ward cost, and it's taking so long, there we go. If they have interaction here to put their creature back into their hand with the blue mana, then they got me. You know, it's just the way it is, but either way, I think it's still worth doing this, so... and they counter target spell, okay. Fair enough. At the very least, we make sure to go ahead and we burn their counter spell. They don't kill the Wandering Emperor yet, so we're still in decent shape here. If we can draw something out, hopefully. Okay, well, what do we do here? So I can make another token to go wide on them, or I can pump up a creature. I think that we just go ahead and get, we force them to attack the Wandering Emperor, maybe. On the other hand, another creature is nice, so if they have removal, then we have more creatures out that we can have to deal with them, so... let's just do the token now, and let's pump up this Samurai. Attack in with both. And then we can do 4 damage if we pump up a Samurai or the Aspirant next turn, but we have them dead if they want to attack here, but then again they wouldn't attack if they didn't have something in hand to survive here. If they have the put a creature back into someone's hand kind of card, then they take care of our 5/5 samurai, so it is a bit of a risk, but we need to get in for as much damage as we can before they can play out something great. 4 mana, what do they have? Okay, so farewell. Let's go ahead and get out our mana here. Sphinx Demon. We can take care of enchantments if we want to. We can also just attack in and see what they do. We can attack in first, and then depending on what they do, then we can do farewell afterwards. That can take care of a lot of stuff if we need to, and it gets around the... Does it get around the word cost? I think it probably does, because you're not technically targeting it, so... Let's do this and see what they do. And then if they have anything here, then hey, they have it. But then farewell we can do stuff with afterwards. Unlikely that they can play out 2 counterspells this turn, or 2 instant speed interactions, basically. So they have to have something to save themselves here. So what is it? Vanishing Verse, fair enough. And then we can go ahead and save the farewell, or we can just play it now while they don't have much mana. I think we go ahead and save the vanishing, or the farewell. They could have a counterspell, but I think that since they have so many cards in hand, we want to use farewell. We can deal with as many things as possible. And then maybe if we draw into a Null Priest, then we can get back a Cleric from the graveyard to try and get in for the win. Okay, so that's another thing to deal with the farewell. And so it's when it Tolls dies, or Toluz dies. So if we exile it, then they don't get the secondary value from it. As far as the returning the cards to their hand. So Null Priest would be a good draw with the menace that it has, so it can get by blockers for the 2 damage that we need. Looks like they're looting with the Connive here. Yep, so Farewell is going to be very good here if they don't have a counterspell in their hand. They very well could. So I guess it's a matter of which do we want to play first. I think that we attack in first and see what they do. But if we do that, they probably chump block. And then that means that they get these cards back to their hand. Which means that they have more gas that we don't want. So if we're going to Farewell, I think we'd have to do it now, and if they have a counterspell, so be it. But if we do the Null Priest before Farewell, then we end up losing our creatures to the Farewell afterwards, so I think we have to do this now. Destroy all enchantments, or exile all enchantments and creatures. Do they have any artifacts out there? No. Just enchantments and creatures. Alright. And exile all graveyards. Oh, we don't want to do graveyards because then the Null Priest gets worse. So if we exile our graveyard, then the Null Priest would get much, much worse. So if they have a counterspell here, so be it. Then we can still play the Null Priest next turn and hope for the best. They don't have a counterspell. I mean, if they had a counterspell, they surely would have used it there. So I have to assume that they don't have one right now. And then we can get back a Cleric of Lifespawn, or Voice of the Blessed would also be pretty good. Righteous Valkyrie could also fly over the top to win. I'm not sure if they really have any life gain in their deck, so Null Priest and the Valkyrie could win it if they don't get a... They could get another creature out for the Null Priest, but if they don't get like a flying creature, then they could still lose. Alright, so that's going to be annoying. But since the Null Priest does have Menace, then that's still a consideration. Alright, so any time that the creature dies, they get a loyalty counter. That's going to be annoying. We need like a... We need the March of Wretched Sorrow, I think, maybe to deal with that. We don't have the red mana for the Sacred Fire to deal with that, so that's going to be annoying. I think we have to go ahead and do Null Priest now and do the kicker. We tap out if they have a counter spell. We don't. And then they have Reach. Maybe the Aspirant might be the better choice, because then we can get the Null Priest buffed up with the lifelink. But I think it's going to be Righteous Valkyrie, so that way we get more life gain going. And it's a flying creature and it blocks pretty well, so... Okay, so they have more card value here. They could attack in with this and hope that I don't block. Does have lifelink, so they might just choose to attack in with it. So it looks like it's a very card draw heavy deck that the opponent has, or just getting lots of general value off of their card draw here. Lolth is one of the creatures, or it's one of those planeswalkers that completely changes the field once it gets into play, and you need a way to deal with it right away, otherwise it can just get out of control really fast. Even if we kill the Interceptor, that just means that Lolth ends up getting another loyalty counter. But I think we have to go ahead and block it anyway, though. They get a loyalty counter, but there's not much I can do about that, so... They're probably going to end up losing a creature at some point, so we had to kind of make a decision there. So let's do the Cleric of Life's Bond here. And if they have a counter spell, we probably do not have a chance. Okay. And then we can't attack in because they have the 2 spider tokens that are sitting there, so we're just going to have to sit back and wait. These things having reach kind of makes things a bit tough on us, so... So they mitigate the life loss from the drawing the cards, so they're just trying to get some plays out here to win them the game, which they probably will do at this point. Yep. So another Null Priest would be a good draw to get the value engine from that, but it's going to be tough for us to win, especially with the Hall of the Storm Giants there, so it has Ward and all the other good stuff under the sun, so... With Menace, we can't block these spiders. Even if we could, they end up getting another loyalty counter there, so... Well, Sacred Fire, at the very least, is good instant speed interaction, but we can't cast it, obviously, because we don't have the red mana, so... Getting kind of screwed by my mana base here. I think that's the end of the game, so we'll just go ahead and give them the GG's. Yeah, so if we had red mana there, we might still be able to win it. We can do instant speed interaction, buffing up the Cleric of Life's Bond into an attack into a 3/4 creature, and then killing the Lolth there before the combat resolves. Then the Lolth would be off the field, and we might have a chance, but yeah, overall we were not going to be able to win that without the red mana for that Sacred Fire, so... Unfortunate, but that's the way it goes, especially against the Planeswalker decks that really get the value engines going with all those super strong effects. So many Planeswalkers are kind of busted, but that's just the way of things. So, alright, so I'll go ahead and see you guys for the next game here. Alright, we have the Gukimo with Minsk and Boo as their avatar there. Quite lovely, if I do say so. No black mana, but we do have the double white, and we have the red for the Sacred Fire, so we can play this out turn 2, then instant speed removal turn 3. Maybe we draw into some black mana for this to pay the kicker cost later on. And then Wandering Emperor on turn 4 would be pretty sweet, so I think this is still a keep even without the black mana. Let's go ahead and play that out first. Then we probably play this out on turn 2, and we miss out on green mana, but that's okay. So we have the black mana now. I still think that we do Voice of the Blessed, and then we can do Null Priest on turn 3 if we really want to, but... Oh, hello. Hello there! Waves to the opponent. Just your friendly neighborhood cleric deck. Let's see, yeah, I think we need to play out our white mana now, and let's just do this. We'll skip out on green, and we just want to play out a Cleric and curve out here if possible. Next turn, Sacred Fire can be good for the instant speed removal while pumping up the Voice of the Blessed. I wonder if they have a return target creature to their hand type spell in their hand, and they're deciding if they want to slow me down and remove Voice of the Blessed from the field. If they don't, it's the Bankbuster. Yeah, this has been a somewhat common constructed card I've seen in sort of Magic the Gathering YouTubers playing matches. This is a somewhat common card in constructed nowadays from the Kamigawa sets for the card draw value. Plus a nice little vehicle that can be crewed and attack in for lots of sweet damage. So Sacred Fire is not enough to deal with the Reckoner, and we don't have removal like Vanishing Verse wouldn't even remove it because it's a colorless artifact. So yeah, I think we just go ahead and we play out the black, and then pre-combat we do this, do that, and then next turn we can maybe do Wandering Emperor. We can also do Sacred Fire to pump up both of the clerics that we have on the field. Blue-green removal at this point doesn't deal with the clerics on the field. They would need a creature on the field, I think, to be able to get rid of them with this kind of deck that I'm seeing so far. With like a fight spell of some kind. Beside you, I guess that's a channel land, okay. Yeah, so because it's channel and not like a sort of spell land type thing where they can turn it into a creature land or something, then probably better for us. That's a channel land instead. So let's go ahead and we'll play out the red mana here, and we'll just attack in. See if they do anything in response. Don't. Okay. Let's wait on the Wandering Emperor then, and we'll play that out at the end of their turn. Sacred Fire could have allowed me to get in for lots of damage there, but I'm just going to wait until I have a better target for it. Maybe they're trying to find a land or find just some kind of play. Alright, so let's play out the Wandering Emperor now then, and see what they do. Do they have a counter spell for it, for like a non-creature spell? Alright, so that's fine. I think we're still okay even without that. We'll just play out the... Let's get out this. And we don't have any creatures in the graveyard yet, so let's just go ahead and play out the Null Priest. Get the Cleric out, get the life gain going, get in for 6. I can deal 2 damage to any target, but I still want to wait until we have a reasonable target for it. So next turn I can certainly play it for the win if I want to. And then I Poison the Cup as some backup removal here. I could have foretold the Poison the Cup so I could play it in the future turn with the 1 black mana to get around the double black, but I think that Sacred Fire helps us to win here as soon as possible, so... Okay, Old Rutstein. Yep, let's do this, yada yada. So Poison the Cup may have been better here, but we still have a combat trick that we can use to pump up our clerics, so... Another mana is good. We get the double black now for Poison the Cup. If we need like double interaction here. So what does this do? When old already sings the battlefield, beginning of keep middle card, and card, make a treasure. Non-creature, non-land card is moved this way, create a blood token. Okay. So base-wise, it's just like a 4/4 blocker, so let's attack in and see what they do. I could have killed it pre-combat with Poison the Cup for the win, but they might have a counter spell. So let's just go ahead and do this and see if we can get them to block. Alright, very nice. Let's just go ahead and do this. Yep, they're going to get the card draw value to see if they can do anything here. We gain life. Alright, so Poison the Cup would have won us the game here, but this was a safer play, so that's why I chose to do it. Let's foretell this now. We have it available this turn if we need to kill something and clear the way. So our opponent's dead in a lot of ways. Next turn we can Sacred Fire them to kill them to the face. We can attack in. I don't think that there's really any outs for them unless they have... They would need both a... They would need like a sweeper effect as well as a counter spell for the Sacred Fire to be able to win here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and kill this now. And we can at least win here. With 1 mana, they can't really do much, so let's do this now. We don't need the land. March of Otherworldly Light, on the other hand, is great, so... And we win the game, so... Yeah, they wouldn't have had any blockers for our clerics next turn, and it wouldn't have been good enough with the value off of their ninja there, so... Yep, definitely a good game from the opponent, but... I mean, their deck looked like it was pretty sweet. They had some good rare cards in there, but they didn't curve out very well, so... Yep, so the Cleric deck got there for that game, and again, curving out is just so awesome in the deck. It can really get going very fast, so let's go ahead and move on to the next game here. Alright, another game in the arena. Let's see how this one goes against another Asian opponent, it would seem. I am going a bit late into the night now, so I guess maybe people in other time zones are playing Magic at this hour of time, so... This is a really good hand. We can play out everything except for the Voice of the Blessed, and we can potentially draw into some mana on the draw here to get this out, so... Very good keep. We can do Cleric class turn 1, then do a Cleric turn 2. Get some value going here. Then turn 3, we can maybe foretell Poison the Cup or play out another Cleric, so all is good in the world of Cleric land. Dragonspark Reactor we could get rid of with the March of Otherworldly Light. Maybe we can discard Voice of the Blessed to get rid of that. That wouldn't be bad. But I think for now we're just going to go ahead and get out the... I guess the Null Priest is actually better here. You can get life gain on turn 3 after we play out the Cleric of Life's Bond. And so we can pump the Cleric of Life's Bond next turn no matter what. As long as they don't have removal for the Null Priest, so... Okay, Onicult Anvil, they're going to get sort of value engine going here with artifacts. So the Dragonspark Reactor is certainly getting very big very quickly. March of Otherworldly Light's looking pretty good here on either the Onicult Anvil or the Reactor. So it's a very artifact, red-black artifact sort of drain you out with Onicult Anvil deck, I'm thinking. We'll probably make the We'll probably make with the March cards to discard some of these cards that we can't really play effectively, so... yeah, since Null Priest has Menace, I think I'm just going to go ahead and play this out first, and then attack in here, and they have to double block to kill it. I think that clearing the way here is actually quite worth it, so we're going to go ahead and do it. Now they don't have another token to sacrifice to the Unequal Anvil. And we pump up the Cleric of Life's Bond, so not a bad turn for us. Pretty good trade in my opinion. Bloodtith Harvester is going to be a bit of an annoyance as well with the blood token value here. They only have one blood token, so they can't kill the Cleric yet. But they can if they sacrifice an artifact, so they have the removal that they need, but we have other Clerics in our hands, so we're going to be okay. So I guess the question is, what do I want to play out this turn? I can do a March of Wretched Sorrow and discard Poison the Cup to get rid of the Bloodtith Harvester here, and gain life with Voice of the Blessed, so I think I'm going to do this. Play out this, and then we do March of Wretched Sorrow to get rid of the Bloodtith Harvester. That's technically a 2-drop here. Discard the Poison the Cup. Clear this out of the way. And then we gain life, and we pump up Voice of the Blessed. Yeah, we just want to try and get rid of their threats now. And then that can deal damage to a creature, but if they do, then Luminarch Aspirant can get in there and do something. March of Otherworldly Light can still deal with the Dragonspark Reactor, so we're not going to block here. They might have a Pump Spell or maybe another Voltage Surge. So yeah, they need 4 mana for that, so if I want to do March of Otherworldly Light, I would probably need to do it now. To make sure I can save the creatures on the field, so... I think if we can do this now, since the Dragonspark Reactor is a 2-drop, they don't have the 4 mana to activate it right now. So let's go ahead and... maybe we attack in first? Let's attack in first and see what they do here. They might have a combat trick or some removal to deal with it. Okay, they're going to take it, I think. Then let's do this for X2. Get rid of the Dragonspark Reactor. Auto pay. And they don't have enough mana to activate it and get value out of it, so that's kind of a... unfortunately a bit of a waste there. They do kill a creature, but we have the Luminarch Aspirant and Null Priest that can get out next turn if we draw an untapped land, so we still have some gas left. Another Unequal Anvil for even more drainage, but the drainage isn't really what's going to get us here, because we have Cleric cards that get us life gain. It's going to be more... can they get out the, can they sort of race us by making them gain life? So, alright, perfect. Let's go ahead and do this, and then we play out both of these. Then next turn we can level up Cleric class, and then Null Priest can pump up itself. So we make it a 3-2 this turn. The next turn it can be a 4-3 that has lifelink and can grow even bigger from the Cleric class. So if we're lucky and they don't have any more removal, we can start doing some work next turn. Deadly Dispute's fine. May drain us a bit, but we're going to be okay. Another Dragonspark Reactor, but it doesn't have any charge counters on it right now, so we're okay. So they have 3 tokens now. March of Wretched Sorrow might be pretty good here. Gets rid of their tokens. And it's instant speed removal, but it means that we can't level up the Cleric class this turn. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to attack in here. This doesn't give me a +1/+1 counter until I gain life, so it would be post-combat, so I think I need to do this. Attack in, it has lifelink, so we're not getting the Cleric class value, but if they triple block here, then March of Wretched Sorrow can save the Null Priest. They don't. They only double block. They probably do only Cult Anvil here, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of sucky. So I guess what do we want to do now? I mean, they can sack in response, so they sacrifice the other token now, I think. And we don't get the lifelink value, but that's okay. We get rid of 2 of their tokens. Let's go ahead and level this up then now, and then March of Wretched Sorrow combos off of it next turn. We can gain life at instant speed, so we can pump up a creature. They can kill the aspirant now if they want to. With the Dragon Spark reactor, but they have to sacrifice the reactor to do that. Okay, now they're at a point where they can kill the Null Priest. If I were in their position, it's probably what I would do, but what do I know? If they allow the Null Priest to live, then we could still have a chance, but Dragon Spark Reactor is instant speed, but if we wait until combat, then March of Wretched Sorrow could end up saving the Null Priest. So I think we play out the red mana here and go to the next turn. You have to go to Dragon Spark Reactor now. Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and just do this then. Select the value for X. Like, what is that? Next one, or is it something like that? Let's see if they sack in response. Okay, so we're not going to attack, but we just needed to try and buy some time, essentially. Only Cult Anvils are going to drain us, but if we get like a Null Priest out again, then maybe we can go ahead and get untapped land and a Null Priest the next 2 draws. We can still do something. No blocks. Blood Tith Harvester is going to be another annoyance here. We're just going to keep on sacking and killing stuff here, so it's looking like the only Cult Anvil plan for them is getting out of hand, so this will die to the Dragon Spark Reactor next turn if we play it. Whereas this, we can get out something to try and maybe... Yeah, it's a matter of what I want to die to the Dragon Spark Reactor. I don't know, maybe another Null Priest is okay. This just makes the best use of mana, so let's do level 3. And we're going to gain some life equal to its toughness, so... Voice of the Blessed, getting flying and getting over the top might be our only chance. So maybe we have to do this and hopefully we can get in with it, so... attacks. Dragon Spark Reactor, though, is going to get built up enough next turn where they're going to be able to kill the Voice of the Blessed, so our chances aren't really looking good here because they can just keep on generating new artifacts each turn with the Onicult Anvil. So it's probably just a matter of time before they drain us out and attack in for lethal. Yeah, the big problem with this, playing against this deck is basically... No, let's just let them get in here. Doesn't make any difference. They'll kill it with the Dragon Spark Reactor if we block and take the 1 damage, so... At least this way we force them to pump up the Dragon Spark Reactor, use it, and all that. The biggest problem playing against this deck is that there's no mana cost into using any of these things except for the Dragon Spark Reactor, so that's the big one. So Righteous Valkyrie doesn't do anything for us, and the Valkyrie Harbinger is great if we could get it out, but it would die to the Dragon Spark Reactor itself, so let's at least get this out as a blocker, I guess. We'll do a pre-combat. They're going to use the Dragon Spark Reactor anyway, so they have the pick of the litter. And then they can just kill our Voice of the Blessed at any time with the Dragon Spark Reactor. We're not going to attack in yet, since they can sack in response to a block. They can easily chump block, so can't really do much here. So essentially we need to draw an untapped land, or we need to draw a land for the Valkyrie Harbinger. And I guess they're going to kill us with the Dragon Spark Reactor. Alright, so that's GG's. They deal damage to our face, and then we're dead on board here, so... And the Onicult Anvil technically finished us off, so... Adding insult to injury there, the Onicult Anvil value deck got there with their various bits of removal and chump blocks, and we didn't have any flying creatures to get over the top with the Voice of the Blessed or a Valkyrie Harbinger or anything like that, so... It happens, but sometimes there are some matchups that aren't a good matchup for you because they can slow down the aggro and get rid of your creatures before they can get bigger. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game and see if we can do better next time. Alright, another game in the arena. Let's see if we can do better than last time. Getting a quick drink of my water here, which is why the mouse cursor is over my lovely Null Priest. So we have all of our colors of mana in opening hand. We don't have double white for the Wandering Emperor, but we have 2 good clerics. We have some removal here. We can potentially discard the Wandering Emperor to the March, so I think we'll go ahead and keep this. And we'll get out our white mana first. Hello! Special delivery of Cleric cards. And I think I'm going to go ahead and deal with the Generous Visitor now. And discard the Wandering Emperor since I don't have the double white to play it. Make the best use of our mana, get rid of that now before it becomes a big problem. Which I very well can in these enchantment decks, so... Thanks. Yep, so we're going to do this. We still have the green mana with the Overgrown Farmland, so I'm okay with this. Let's get out the Null Priest that can attack in next turn with the Menace. Yeah, it's looking like it's a green-white enchantment deck. The Generous Visitor is in basically every enchantment deck, so not a surprise. Let's go ahead and get this out for the green mana and all the other stuff. Let's play this out pre-combat, so that way we can pump it up with the life gain here from lifelink. And we have Wandering Emperor that we can flash out next turn, depending on what they do. They might have a fight spell here if they can... Or maybe they have an enchantment spell or enchantment-based removal here that they want to play out. Okay. So if we get the March of Otherworldly Light, the other one in our deck, or some way to deal with the enchantments, like maybe the Farewell, then we can still potentially deal with the enchantment here removal. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this out with the red mana. Let's attack in and see if they do anything in response. They don't, so let's go ahead and do Wandering Emperor to pump up the Null Priest. I can also go ahead and get rid of the Jukai Naturalist, so maybe that's just better here, get rid of their creature. And then they're not likely to have anything with haste to finish off the Wandering Emperor, and they have one less blocker for the Null Priest. And it makes all of their other enchantments not have the reduced cost. Alright, well they still can't block the Null Priest here, so I'm okay with that. And then I guess we get out the double black here in case we draw anything double black. And then I guess, do we want to make a token, or do we want to do the +1/+1? I think we just go ahead and do the +1/+1 pre-combat for the lifelink aspect. Get in there. And then they'll probably go after the Wandering Emperor, but they can also try and damage 5 damage to my face here if they really want to. They'll have lots of +1/+1 counters on the Kami of Transience, but if I draw some removal for it next turn, then they could waste a turn attacking the Wandering Emperor here. Alright, so they're not going to go to the Wandering Emperor, they're going to go face, which is fine by me. Either scenario was good for us, so then this is going to turn into a 1... So I think it'd be like a 5/5 creature when they get it out, so... Let's see if we can play this out pre-combat. And then we can keep on pumping up the Null Priest, I think. We can also make a 2/2 token, but we can also exile target tapped creature and get this off the field, so I think we go ahead and do this. Gain life with the Righteous Valkyrie here. Or we gain life to, in the future, activate the Righteous Valkyrie secondary effect here, so... I think getting off the Kami of Transience was better than doing the Michigo's Reign of Truth. Getting rid of that one. Would have to attack for us to be able to get rid of it in that way, so we do this now, and this thing's also smaller as a result, so I guess it's just a 3/3 right now. Okay, so they're gonna get some extra counters, but that's okay because we have Menace on the Null Priest. And then what we can do here is we can do Sacred Fire pre-combat to give the 27 life and get the +2/+2 to get in there for even more damage. And eventually the Fall of the Imposter is going to take care of our creatures, but if we can get in for damage now, then we can have them on a clock. And this has the flashback value as well, so target them to their face, gain the life. Then with the flashback, all the imposter is not going to save them here. So Sacred Fire kills them next turn if they don't have any way to gain life. So, okay, that's not going to save them, so GG's. Let's just do this to the face for the win. Yeah, good game by our opponents. If we weren't able to get them down to such a low life total, then they very well could have turned the game in their favor and sort of snowballed to victory there, but we got there before they could get the value engine of the enchantments, so... Very good enchantment-based deck, though. I think if they had gone for the Wandering Emperor instead, then they might have been able to win, because then they would have kept their Kami of Transience on the field for much longer, so... And we weren't really drawing any removal to go ahead and deal with that Kami. So, alright, so that was a good game. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Alrighty, yet another match. Let's see how we do this time. Okay, so turn 2 Aspirant into maybe turn 2 Null Priest into turn 3 Aspirant here. So that way we can attack with a 3/2 Null Priest on turn 3. And then we don't have red mana for the Sacred Fire, but if we draw a March of Otherworldly Light, then we can always discard it. So let's go ahead and keep this. Interesting draw. I still think that getting out the Null Priest is still going to be the order of business here, so first order of business, get out the Null Priest. And we have another black source, and we can maybe do the green mana for our Tralasara at some point, so haven't really seen the Tralasara much in these matches yet, even though we do have only one copy, so Cleave. Okay, so this is a more recent mechanic, I believe, with the Cleave. Alright, so it can be like a big board wipe in the late game as well with the Cleave cost. Okay. So Overgrown Farmland, we could just play this out now, so that way we can have some more versatility with the other lands, and then we can go ahead and I guess play out the Cleric of Lifespawn now. The next turn it can be a 4/4. Might be a green-black deck with lots of removal in it to try and buy time for really big creatures and lots of interaction here, so we'll go ahead and we do have some double black in the deck, so let's get out the black mana here. We could also do Wandering Emperor, and there aren't very many sweepers that would take care of the Wandering Emperor as a way to pump the Cleric of Life's Bond, but I think if we just go ahead and do this, then we don't have to play out the Cleric of Life's Bond this turn. We can just kind of wait and see if they have removal. Doesn't look like they have any, so let's play this out this turn then. And next turn we can flash in Wandering Emperor at some point. Okay, another board sweeper. That's fine. We have more gas where that came from, so let's go ahead and I guess we already have the green mana with the dual land, so let's go ahead and do that, and then let's just play this out. Trying to play it out. There we go. The next turn we can do Wandering Emperor. I'm just kind of waiting on it so that way if they have removal for a Planeswalker or some destroy creature or Planeswalker kind of removal spell, then we can have a creature eat it. Okay, been in combat on your turn. Okay, so it doesn't happen on our combat step. Interesting. Alright, so Wandering Emperor here, probably the best bet. They might have a big creature to get out, but unless it has haste, they're not going to be able to kill the Wandering Emperor. So let's go ahead and just beef up the Voice of the Blessed here. +1/+1 and get in there. And at least if they have a board sweeper now, or more removal, then at least the Wandering Emperor is not going to die to any of it, I imagine. Another Glorious Sunrise. That's fine, I suppose. They don't have any creatures out just yet. Null Priest is a great draw. I might hold it in my hand, so that way I can go ahead and play out the kicker cost and get another Cleric back. I think that we just keep on doing the +1/+1 here. Get in damage. Yeah, I'm holding the Null Priest so that way if we draw a land we get some value off of that. Looks like they're going to ramp into something big here. Maybe two big things. Maybe they have like another big board sweeper. All right, so a big creature. Yeah, they can't kill the Wandering Emperor, at least not this turn. So now we have the Null Priest of Oblivion with the kicker value. Luminarch Aspirant would pump up another time. So that would get another 2+1/+1 counters and would have flying. Does this have reach? It does. Okay, well, that's going to be a problem. And let's see, that has trample, so we can't make a chump blocker for it. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and do a little bit of this to try and get it big enough to fly past the big good dude. I think we just do kicker now. And then I think we do Luminarch Aspirant here. And then let's do it on, I guess, Voice of the Blessed here. I can save the Wandering Emperor here this turn, barely. But I guess it may not be an option now, because this thing is going to get us pretty good. So there's definitely a high-end deck. Their removal and board sweepers really slowed the pace, and we couldn't really curve out the way we were hoping to on that. So the aggression was really slowed down there. Not attacking, however. That might be what we need, because I guess that technically has reach, but first strike on Voice of the Blessed, we get rid of something. Yeah, having creatures of reach is really getting us here, but I think we just go ahead and play out the Righteous Valkyrie here. And then I think we have to go ahead and do another +1/+1. So we basically need a blocker here is why I'm doing this, so we can slow them down. We have a big creature that can block their big creatures, basically, so that's only enter the battlefield, and they can't do the -3 this turn. This is like a land synergy, so that thing can, however, get bigger, but it doesn't have trample. Yeah, I think I just have to kind of hold back here. I could attack with a Null Priest, but I think I'd rather attack in when I can make it bigger and force a double block, maybe. I can also chump block with it as well and gain life for the Voice of the Blessed value and pump them both up. Now, if this game's indestructible with all the +1/+1 counters, then that could get us there as a blocker that can attack in with Vigilance, so we want to get the +1/+1 counters as soon as possible here. So what's the revealed cards doing, I guess? Reveal top 4 cards to your library, put all land cards, rest in your graveyard. Okay. So they discarded some pretty good cards, it's looking like there, and they're just trying to get a bunch of lands to get this thing really huge, I think. And then this thing, at the beginning of combat, you can give creatures trample. Okay, so they can give their 8/8 trample, which can make things a bit tough on us. Okay, so that's going to be a bit of a problem once again. I don't think that we have a chance here now, but I can do the -2 to get a creature token out, but it doesn't do anything at this point. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to call it GG, because I don't think there's anything that can save us here, so... Yep, they got there. If they didn't have Blood on the Snow, then I think that our Voice of the Blessed could have potentially gotten indestructible and that could have won us the game, but until it gets indestructible, it's still vulnerable to removal. So I think that drawing into a board sweeper there again kind of got us. Like I said before the matches, board sweepers are the one bad matchup for our deck. They clear out all of our clerics, they clear out all of our creatures, and even if you have your planeswalker with a very good one, admittedly, with the Wandering Emperor out there, then on its own, it's not going to be able to win you the game like the other planeswalkers can, so it's more of a complementary card to creatures, so it is what it is. So, alright, let's go ahead and move on to the next match. Okay, here we go. Let's see what kind of nonsense we'll be dealing with this time. We've gone up against a variety of decks. Some of them have been bad matchups, some of them have just been bad luck, but, you know, what you gonna do? Alright, so we get... we can't discard this, the March of Wretched Sorrow. We don't really have any early plays. I think this is going to be a mulligan for us, so... Wandering Emperor is great, but we'd have to hope to draw into some action here, and this on its own doesn't really do anything because we don't have any creatures in the graveyard. So... yeah, without any creatures here, I just have to mull this and hope I get a better hand. This isn't really much better, but at least we have March of Otherworldly Light to deal with something early on. Then Poison the Cup can also deal with stuff. Don't want to bottom the Legion Angel because this at least gets us more of them. So let's keep 6. Valkyrie Harbinger can go. We only have 2 lands right now, so let's just stick with the things that we can play for now. March of Otherworldly Light can discard either the Legion Angel or the Sacred Fire, depending on how we draw. Mono faces Kazakhstan or Kakazan. Alright, so if another Sacred Fire, I might want to go ahead and play out red. For red mana, but then again, yeah, I'd have to choose between black or red here. Let's go ahead and play out the white, because I know I want that. Then I can maybe discard the Legion Angel here. If they play out something good here, okay. So I think I can just do March of Otherworldly Light right now. Do this. Pay X2. Discard the Legion Angel and take care of this. Before I can do a bunch of stuff against us and get pumped up, so do that now to make the best use of mana, and then I think we just go ahead and do this. Hope we draw a land. Drawing a black source of mana would be great. Drawing a white source would still be decent because we do have some double white cards in this deck, so Sacred Fire can kill that. Can also kill the Iron Apprentice if we want to, but I think we just do it in a different order. So let's go ahead and kill this before I can really do anything. Then we have Sacred Fire for the Iron Apprentice as well. Alright, perfect. So we can get out Righteous Valkyrie for a chump blocker. It's not likely to die to red removal here unless they have like the Mephits. Well, Mephits Enthusiasm is an alchemy card, so they couldn't have that. They would need red removal that deals 4 damage here to kill it, so... And then next turn I can, if I draw a land next turn, I can do Foretell, Poison the Cup, then Sacred Fire, one of their creatures. Raiju is interesting. Okay, I'm not going to block. Poison the Cup. Alright, now Poison the Cup can kill it. Excellent. Okay, so let's get out that, and let's go ahead and do this while they're tapped out on mana. I'm not... well, I can foretell it, however. Yeah, maybe foretelling's better so I can get the scry value. But if I'm going to foretell, I would want to... I guess Why does it want to tap my black mana here? Let's just do this. I want to keep the foretell value here, so I'd rather do the Poison the Cup than the Sacred Fire. It was trying to screw me on the auto tap. Auto tapper was trying to keep the Sacred Fire up, and I want to be able to cast Poison the Cup this turn instead, so I would rather do this onto the Thundering Raiju. Take care of that sucker now. Null Priest is good. Another white source of mana is not bad either. Yep, I guess that's okay. We can keep both of those. So they're getting in there so far, but I think that we can play this out. Have some lifelink here. Gain some life. And we'll get in here. See what happens. I guess maybe bottoming the land might have been better, but okay. Alright, so they're gonna kill Righteous Valkyrie. There's not much I can do about that. Sacred Fire does not do enough damage here, so okay, let's just go ahead and kill this. Well, I can't kill it because of the Ward 2, so I can't kill it this turn. I have to kill it next turn. Okay, well, Thundering Raiju is going to get bigger. Land's not going to help me here, so I'm going to have to hope for the best. Sacred Fire and Lifelink can do okay. No blocks, so I want to keep my Priest alive. Yeah, maybe bottoming the land might have been better in my situation, but not much I can really do, so. And then I guess we just have to attack in here for the lifelink, so. If they wanted to double block, that's okay. And yet another Patchwork Automaton. So yeah, I think we've lost this match too. The artifact deck with the aggressive synergies here have kind of gotten us here, and they had removal that they needed with the Voltage Surge. So if I had had like a Crippling Fear or something like that before, then I could have maybe done something. Yep, I want to do that. Autopay. Not going to be enough life gain to save us here, but I figured I might as well just do it. Just play it out a little bit. But yeah, we weren't able to get there. Again, more removal. Took care of our Cleric cards before they could really start doing stuff. So, and we didn't have enough early game plays. So, the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. So we're kind of around 500 here. Kind of losing it slightly more than we've won, but still doing okay. I mean, it's still a fun deck, so I'm going to keep on going here for a little while longer, and again, just see if we can sort of get some more wins here. So see you in a jiffy. All right, on to another match here. Let's see what the opening hand is looking like. We have many colors of mana. And we have some removal here, Board Sweeper removal, Null Priest turn 2, maybe Voice of the Blessed after that. Well, I guess we don't have black mana. I guess I overlooked that part of it. Yeah, I think this is going to be a mull. We don't have any black mana with 2 black spells. So I think we're going to have to mull this and no double whites. This is looking much better. We can do some Luminarch Aspirants into some nice little action here. So, top, bottom, the Valkyrie. And then we'll get out our black and white mana, and then hopefully we can draw into some more action here. Looks like it can maybe be like a red-black sacrifice deck or something else, kind of like that with the Dockside Chef. So, I think I'm more likely to want some red mana here, so let's do this black mana first, and then could do March of Wretched Sorrow. Well, March of Wretched Sorrow doesn't do enough damage here, so Need to have X2 to be able to kill the Dockside Chef before they get value off of it. But Aspirant and Aspirant is also pretty good, and they... I don't know why they left the game there. I mean, unless they felt like the Aspirants were going to just overrun them. Maybe they just didn't have any mana left in their hand to do anything, so... Alright, that's a bit of a too easy victory here, but hey, take what you can get, and that's just the way it goes, so... Alright, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next game, and see you guys for the next one. Alrighty here. Let's see if we get an opponent that doesn't leave the game early. Happened twice so far, and it does happen. Maybe their opening hand is risky, and then they don't have it pay off when they're on the draw or something like that. Could be the case. Okay, so we have pretty decent mana base here. We have all of our colors. We have removal as well as the Wandering Emperor. It's a slow hand, but I'll keep it. We have all of the colors. We can maybe draw into some action. Removal can buy us time in this case. See, yeah, we have some red mana over there, so we'll play out the whites and get a Cleric class now and make the best use of mana. Then next turn I can foretell Poison the Cup, probably. Okay, looks like it's maybe another enchantment deck. Okay. So now I might not foretell Poison the Cup, I might just do the Sacred Fire to gain the life. Let's do this, get rid of this little sucker right now so I don't get the value off of it. No lifelink and no cheapened enchantments. And later on we can still play the flashback on the Sacred Fire at some point. Then we can get the double white with the overgrown farmland for our Wandering Emperor. Not having double black for the Crippling Fear kind of hurts, but I think that was the right play. Get rid of that sort of ramping type creature out of the way now that gets some value. Alright, so now we can either do Cleric of Life's Bond or foretell Poison the Cup. That's probably a creature worth getting rid of. Let's put this out here right now, and then maybe it's more important just to foretell this. Make sure that we have it available next turn. Cleric of Life's Bond doesn't really change much on the field right now. It's not going to block anything. It's not going to get bigger anytime soon. Just need to sort of buy time against the value enchantment deck and make sure that they can't get their synergies going, so... Okay, Valkyrie Harbinger, or Righteous Valkyrie is a good draw. So I could, well, I would have to draw some black mana to make use of Crippling Fear. This does give a +1/+1, which makes it harder for Crippling Fear to wipe the board for us. I only have one black mana, so I can't do both Poison the Cup and Cleric of Life's Bond. I could do the Wandering Emperor now and just have it exile the Weaver of Harmony, so that's just the best use of mana, so maybe we just do this now while they have that tapped. Don't make use of the flash, but we save our Poison the Cup, and we don't know if they're... we don't want them to get like a free attack in next turn of some kind, so we don't want them to be able to do synergies in response to our flashing in the Wandering Emperor, so do it now and slow them down as much as we can. And if we keep on drawing some lands, then we can maybe get the double black for Crippling Fear or more mana for the Sacred Fire. Okay, well that's actually not too bad. So now we can do Luminarch Aspirant into the Cleric of Life's Bond. So we do this first. Then we do this after, and we gain life, and we pump it up twice. I think it's more important to pump up that, because if they have removal, then Cleric of Life's Bond is a good juicy target for them, and if not, Luminarch Aspirant can pump out the Righteous Valkyrie next turn. Still have 2 instant speed removal spells. Crippling Fear is okay if we get out another black mana. March of Otherworldly Light would deal with the borrowed time as a way to get our Wandering Emperor back onto the field. Another borrowed time is okay. We still have plenty of options here for being able to play cards. So I think we do the Null Priest here. We lose out on the kicker value, obviously, but we need double black for that. We aren't guaranteed to get it, so let's do this now. Get in for 1. If they play out a Wandering Emperor here and flash it in, or play it in, and then they can remove Aspirant, but enchantment-based decks don't usually have the Wandering Emperor in their decks, from what I understand. It doesn't really go into the synergies of an enchantment deck. Alright, so they're going to keep on removing creatures here. Eventually they're going to run out of removal in their hand, I think, so Sacred Fire can deal with that pretty soon. So I think we do this for the double black, and then we just play out the Righteous Valkyrie and then give it the +1/+1 counter. It flies over the top of the thing. Then we leave up Poison the Cup if they have like a fight spell in their hand to kill the Valkyrie or the Aspirant. Then we can get a 2-for-1 and kill the Fang in response. Death Touch creatures are usually used either as early blockers, or they are very good with the fight type spells to remove other creatures with their Death Touch. So if they have a fight spell, then we Poison the Cup in response to deal with that. Right, so Generous Visitor. If they cast an enchantment spell, yeah, I guess they get the synergy when they cast it, so I guess we're just going to have to be okay with that. If we kill this now, then the Rune of Might doesn't get the value, so I think we do this. They don't draw the card if we do it this way. Right, so 1 land is okay. 2 lands, not so much. So let's do 1 land on the top. So we can do Sacred Fire next turn and kill that Generous Visitor. White or black doesn't really matter much here, I think. And then I think we just do the Sacred Fire now and remove the blocker. Make use of that, get rid of it before they get value. We get this value going, and I think we do this. So that way we have 2 big threats out there, and next turn they're dead on board if they don't have anything. Crippling Fear can clear the board on their side. Okay, so they're still dead. Right, they're still dead. Right, so I think we just play the Crippling Fear and we win. So another good game here. It's another enchantment deck, which seems to be an okay matchup for us. So able to get the win against a very strong enchantment deck with lots of removal, but thankfully we ended up drawing pretty well in this match. So I think that the key to the Cleric deck is you just need to be able to keep drawing the action, and that's why you play so little lands with it. Play 23 lands with as much fixing as possible, and you just try and keep your curve decently low so you can just keep on drawing action and playing it out on the turn that you draw. Alright, so that was a good match. Let's move on to the next one. Alrighty then. Machi, huh? Let's see what Machi has up their sleeve here. Alright, so Lunarch Veterans, I think, is making its first appearance for us in our deck so far. We don't have any green, however, for the Tralasara. This is a bit of a risky hand. We don't curve out in the turn 1 and the turn 2. We have no green mana either. We don't have a Sacred Fire to make use of the red mana. Very risky. And we go first, so we can definitely make a turn 1 play. I mean, it's a risky keep, but we'll do it. If we're lucky, we draw into green mana turn 2, so who knows. If not, we can do Cleric Class turn 2, Righteous Valkyrie turn 3, which isn't terrible, but not ideally what you want with this deck. You really want some action on turn 2. March of Otherworldly Light does make things a bit better for us now that we can discard the Trelasara. I think we play this out. Attack in. Leave up March of Otherworldly Light in response, and we discard the Trelasara to deal with whatever they play here. Okay. Maybe they have another one. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and just kill one of these at the least. Discard that. So let's take care of one of them, slow down the aggro, and they probably have the Patchwork Automaton in their deck as well. Could also just be a hyper aggro deck that's in mono red, but Patchwork Automaton usually wants to be in the same deck as the Reinforced Ronins. You keep on playing it in and out. Goes back to your hand. You play it out again for 1 mana. You keep on pumping your artifacts and getting the synergies going there. Okay, so I guess we play out the Aspirant, pump up the Lunarch Veteran, hopefully draw some mana next turn. Class isn't really doing a whole lot for us right now, so it's kind of some empty cards in our hand. I mean, like I said, this is a very risky hand. We aren't really getting any juice right now, and we're kind of mana starved, and they have the removal that they need, so it's going to be a tough one if we want to win. And that's an enchantment creature, so it might be like an enchantment artifact creature type deck. It could also be mono red aggro. There are some synergies based on both artifacts and enchantments, like the green-white enchantment decks that we saw before with like Michiga's Reign of Truth as artifacts and enchantments. So we do get the mana that we need. So let's go ahead and get the Righteous Valkyrie out then. Now we have a blocker for their Reinforced Ronin. The next turn we can maybe double out Cleric Class and then set up some life gain in the future to try and deal with their aggro. No blocks. Okay, so we have black mana now, and we can potentially level up a Cleric Class next turn. So let's get these both out. And then I can leave the Lunarch Veteran back to chump block the Thundering Raiju, then I can play it back for its disturb cost and gain a bunch of life by getting it back onto the field with the Righteous Valkyrie. So let's go ahead and attack with the Valkyrie, but not the Veteran, and then we can chump block the Raiju to save our life total. We could also trade with one of their 2/2s. Which might be better for the long run. Oh, they have removal? Yep, they have removal. Yep, so I think they're going to get here and do... Well, I guess I should have played the Reinforced Ronin, but I guess they're going to get there anyway, so... I mean... Yeah, I guess they had exile-based removal. Lunarch Veteran is exiled, so... Ah, Alchemist Gambit, that's what got us, alright. Alright, so they got there, and before we get our own value going, and it was, again, a risky hand that I admitted to open-heartedly. at the start of the match, we didn't draw the action we needed, and their removal got in the way of our life gain. So, alright, so let's move on to the next one. Alrighty, so what do we get this time for an opening hand? We have our white and black mana. We have some removal. We have some good curve out of creatures. This is a really good hand. I'm going to keep this one. Definitely better than the hand that we had in our last match, where we didn't really have any curve out plays to do, so put that back there. Voice of the Blessed. Oh, and we get a turn 1 play. This is the perfect start for us, the perfect curve out. Do that turn 1, then turn 2, Cleric of Life's Bond, probably. If we draw some white mana, we could also play Voice of the Blessed first. Green, Ranger class, so it's probably a creature-heavy deck. It could also be a werewolf deck in green-red. That's also like a pretty common way to go. Alright, so I guess we're going to go ahead and do another white, I would think. Vanishing Verse isn't really going to be helpful for us right now. We do this to get the blocker on the field right now. If they level up Ranger class, then I might do Vanishing Verse then as an instant speed interaction to deal with it, after they've used the mana already on it. So after they get it up to level 2, then I could do the Vanishing Verse on it to get rid of it and make sure they don't get the level 3 value. Then again, if they level it up again, I mean, I could wait until they level it up again, but they can also get attack in and get some +1/+1 counter value out of that. Alright, so I guess, do I want green or red mana? I guess is the question. I do have double black, so I might just do black mana here. I guess the Trelasar is not quite as valuable as the Null Priest kicker value, so as well as the Crippling Fear, which could be good in this matchup. So do I want to play Righteous Valkyrie and just get that onto the field? Have a blocker next turn? That might be good. Yeah, I think Righteous Valkyrie is the right play here. Cleric of Life's Bond loses out some of the pump value, but I think that this is right. We can have a blocker for their wolf next turn. Slow them down as much as we can. There aren't any 1-mana green spells that I know of that could have dealt with that, so... I mean, there are some 1-mana pump spells for combat tricks, but I don't know if they want to do that just yet. Wolfkin Outcast. Yep, so it's definitely a werewolf deck then, because this indicates basically werewolves, so... 2 less the cast, so they were able to get it out, so... Vanishing Verse can deal with that pretty effectively, and we can just ignore the Ranger class, I would guess. Let's go ahead and get this out, and then I guess the question is, what do we want to play now? I think we do Cleric of Life's Bond, and then we deal with the Wolfkin Outcast with the Vanishing Verse. Do this pre-combat to get the pump on the Voice of the Blessed. And then we get it flying, and then we go ahead, and I think we just go ahead and take care of this guy now. Then we get in there for 8, and next turn they're dead on the board. If they don't really have something, they can obviously level up Ranger class again to play some more spells, but they can't really play anything this turn if they level that up, so they have to play something that buys them time or has reach or has removal potential. There's no 1-mana green removal that I'm aware of. Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. They were in a bind. They would have to chump block, and then 2 flyers that deal 8 damage, and probably even more than that if we played out something else. Then they were just kind of dead there, unfortunately. So, interesting green, sort of, usually it's green-red werewolves. Maybe it was a mono-green deck that we went up against. We only saw green there, so very well could have been mono-green wolves deck, wolves, so. Alright. Well, we beat the werewolf dogs type deck, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright. Another opponent. With the name Tapper, I have to imagine that they're probably a blue deck with tap down effects. Tap your card, tap it here, tap it there. Also reminds me back in the days where with paper magic you would knock to end your turn. You go knock knock on the table or whatever to end your turn. So brings me back to the old days of tapping and knocking and doing all those things. So yeah, this is a pretty good hand. Turn 1 Cleric class, turn 2 Cleric of Life's Bond, and then turn 3 we can foretell this. It's a pretty good curve out, so I think this is a good keep. We don't have double black yet for the Crippling Fear, but we can certainly draw into it at some point. So yeah, I guess green's not quite as good here with the Trellisara, even though it'd be great to get it out if we draw into it, but I think that the red might be better in a black matchup here for that Sacred Fire. Looks like they could be their own Cleric type deck, so interesting. I don't know if it's a mirror match or not, but it's interesting. So we can't block the Null Priest no matter what. We could do the March of Wretched Sorrow on it, however, and discard the Crippling Fear just to get rid of the Null Priest now. I mean, I'm okay with that, actually. On the other hand, March of Wretched Sorrow can pump up the Cleric of Life's Bond. So I think we play this out first, and we just let them get in for 2 and get the lifelink, and then we do the March of Wretched Sorrow. If they play out another Cleric here that can get pumped up by life gain, then they can kind of get us here. Okay, so they use removal. So they kind of get us, but not the end of the world. We force them to use removal. So I guess we can get the double black. I guess we'll go ahead and play this out as, I guess, black mana for the Crippling Fear. We can do March of Wretched Sorrow now. And let's just do X2. I'm not going to discard anything, so... And then we gain 3 life with the Cleric class, pumping it up a bit. We don't have any Cleric cards in hand that would get pumped up with the life gain, so I'm okay just doing that now. Poison the Cup, we can foretell and do business later. So I do have double white in the deck, but I also have Sacred Fire in the deck, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do white. I think the double white's maybe more important in this situation. The Wandering Emperor would be great for us right now. I think I'll do Cleric class and then foretell Poison the Cup for the next turn here. Then if all else fails, I can maybe just get out. I'm trying to save the Null Priest so I can get the kicker value, but now it's going to be hard to do anything with the Wolf. Okay, so let's get out this mana. Yeah, I definitely need the other March of Wretched Sorrow now. We don't have the red mana for Sacred Fire to deal with the Lolth. Crippling Fear doesn't really do anything either, since this gets more loyalty counters if we do that. We want to save that for the kicker value. Poison the Cup on a token isn't really all that good, so... Level up Cleric class, and Lolth's probably just going to kill us here. Almost every deck that I go up against that has this card, if I don't have removal for it right away, it just takes over the game. And they have another Planeswalker that they curve into here, so... Yeah, it's not looking good for us. Whenever the opponent has two sort of game-changing planeswalkers on the field, it's not looking good for you, so... I mean, it's kind of a hard balancing act. The game, like, planeswalkers are so game-changing when they get on the field most of the time. So most of them are just kind of like that, unfortunately. Like it or hate it, so... Love it or hate it, you know, it's the way that Magic is, I guess is what people would say, so... I guess more white mana is probably better here. On this turn, obviously black mana would be great, but we're not going to be able to double cast Crippling Fear with something else anyway, so it wouldn't really matter that much. At least, not that I can see. So I guess we just do the Null Priest now. And get something out of the graveyard here. Then maybe next turn, if we're lucky, we can draw a 2-mana Cleric and Crippling Fear, and then get in for some damage. Maybe we can kill Lolth here as well if we're lucky, but we're not going to get that lucky. Why would we? You know? All these decks that we go up against, most of them just have all the removal that they could ever want, and then all the Planeswalkers. So once it gets into the late game stages, you're just kind of screwed. So... Unfortunately, Poison the Cup and Crippling Fear, they don't deal against Planeswalkers. We need the March of Wretched Sorrow or the Sacred Fire. Or we just need flat out more creatures that don't die instantly, so... Null Priest could kill Lolth if we get some... Like... Alright, so it's not going to be able to kill her now. If we draw a Luminarch at... Okay, well, I guess they have too many blockers now, so they have too much card draw value to get all these things out. Okay, so we have the red mana now. I guess maybe that wasn't such a great play, because now I can't double cast the Crippling Fear and the Poison the Cup. Oops. I made an oofy there. But it may not even matter, because Crippling Fear, we can kill everything. Lolth gets a bit bigger. But then if we attack into Lolth, then they can't make more spider tokens, so... So if we do Crippling Fear for 4 mana, then we have 3 left over. We can't level any of this up anymore. I think that we have to maybe do... I don't know, Crippling Fear means Shabbling Gas gets us a little bit, so maybe we just have to do leveling up a Cleric class and getting Cleric of Life Spawn back. Gain some life, pump up the Null Priest here for the lifelink. And then hold up Poison the Cup when it's their turn, I think, maybe. I mean, we could just Poison the Cup this turn, attack in with Menace, and kill the Lolth with the Menace, so... Yeah, maybe this is better, actually. And then we do the... kill the Null Priest, since this may be more valuable for them. And our Veterans, okay. We don't need... I don't think we need more mana. Like, Lunark's Veteran's okay, because we have the Cleric of Life Spawn that will get us extra life, so that's okay-ish. Take care of the Lolth. We pump up even more. Shambling Ghast can't kill our creatures now, but the spells in their hands probably can if I'm knowing the situation right, so... So they're not doing the -3/-3, they're going for the -8 next turn. So we can do Crippling Fear, then we attack in. Is probably what we do if they don't have removal, but they do! Why wouldn't they? Why don't these decks just not have all the removal? You know, They just have all the removal they could ever want. So. Okay, so Lunarch Veteran doesn't really do much now, but we can still level up the Cleric class, I suppose. We can do Crippling Fear. We probably have to do this now pre-combat. Well, it doesn't make much of a difference now unless I have a creature to kill Professor Onyx. The fact that they just have all the removal here is just really bad. Just do... I hate how this does this. Takes up a bit too much time. They get a treasure token, but at least we keep our veteran here. Yeah, if they didn't have all that removal, then we could have been okay, but now that we can't attack Professor Onyx, we just die, so... It's the true Planeswalker, slap you in the face and smack you all over the battlefield type deck. Come on, just do the -8 already and kill me. No need to go through all this. Yep. So, yeah, they had all the removal that they could have wanted. You know, it seems like a removal heavy deck, and then they just buy time for their Planeswalkers. You know, it's an era where Planeswalkers and enchantments are really kind of burning up the meta here, so at least as far as my knowledge goes for the constructed. So, yep, it's just the way it goes, and that's just the way that lots of these matchups can kind of turn out when you can't really get your aggression going with the Cleric deck, and you can't do anything with the creatures that your deck is focused on, and not having the ideal amounts of Planeswalker removal kind of also hurts, but you do what you can with the wild cards that you have. There's only so many that I have here to make use of, so... Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one, and maybe we'll do a couple more, and then we'll call it a night. Alright, yet another opponent. Let's see what kind of nonsensory that we're going to be dealing with in this matchup. So... we don't have red mana, we don't have the March of Otherworldly Light. We do have green mana, however, but we... Yeah, this is an iffy hand because we don't have the mana that we need. We have to choose between green and black, essentially, which is a bad choice. We have the Trelasara in hand. I mean, we're on the play. We can at least get out something turn 2 with Luminarch or Trelasara, so maybe we just keep this and hope we can draw either more lands. Ideally would be the best thing to draw. I think we do the white mana first and then decide next turn what we want to do with this one. Because I definitely know that I want the white mana out there. Looks like they could also be a Cleric deck, and that was a terrible draw for us, so... I think we'll just play out the Trelasara here then, I guess, and then next turn hopefully we can pump it up with the Aspirant. Yeah, and if nothing else, it'll eat the removal, even though I can't really do much with it right now, so I guess that's also not bad. This is very bad. We are really in a bind. We just do not have the mana right now, so... Could be a mirror matchup, black-white Clerics versus black-white Clerics, and they just have better mana and more removal. Probably foretelling a Poison the Cup if I were to wager a guess, so I would say that the Luminarch Aspirant's days are numbered here. Yeah, this does give us black mana now. Sacred Fire would be okay too. I think we can do this, and then we can play Lunarch Veteran and then do Null Priest here. We just get out some creatures. Something's going to eat removal, but that's going to be what we're going to have to live with here, so... At the very least, we have a 3/2 Menace lifelinker, so if they kill the Luminarch Aspirant, then Righteous Valkyrie is going to be okay next turn. Okay. Had the removal that they needed. And of course, there aren't too many other cards other than Poison the Cup that I would imagine would be in a black-white Cleric deck. I mean, I guess they could have Doomscar as like an ace in the hole in case we get the advantage and have the tempo on our side, but let's do the Glade, and then I guess we don't have any red mana now, so let's do this. Get the good old life gain going, and then do... I guess if they want to trade the Luminarch Veteran, I'm okay with that. Probably better for us than for them, since the Null Priest already gets us life, so... Plus it gives us a bit of an edge in the race, just getting in as much damage as we can. March of Otherworldly Light would be a decent draw. We can discard one of the cards in our hand to that. What's this do? Oh, your life total. Keep drawing a card. Alright, so this was in the one of the more recent sets, and it's, I think it's the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, if I'm mistaken. Yeah, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set. So yeah, this was like a weird sort of card draw, life gain deck kind of card. Kind of hard to get going exactly, but in some decks it certainly does good. So let's do the Sacred Fire now. So they don't have a blocker for this. We're just short of 27 here, but next turn we're just going to have that online. So at least now our clerics are pumped up and we have them dead on board even if they have one removal spell, so that's not going to save them. Alright, so now they're getting the synergies going a little bit, so... March of Otherworldly Light, on the other hand, might be able to almost win it for us. We can discard the Farewell. But what does discarding the Farewell do for us? Not very much. I guess we can get rid of that. But we can already pay the X4, though. I mean, we can always adjust attack first and see what they do. I mean, they're going to have to make some blocks, so... And then we can have them dead to like a Sacred Fire if we draw some mana. Let's just go ahead and do this on one of their creatures, and then we can do Sacred Fire on a following turn. Let's do X2. We're not going to discard the Farewell. Let's get rid of the creature that can get bigger here and become a bigger threat. Then we'll attack in, and they are forced to chump block. Alright. Yep, that's going to get us there. So, I guess after we had the removal, they would have gone to 1 life with a chump block, and then I guess they would have had to have... They would have to draw a untapped land and then have a board sweeper like Farewell or something like that, so... Or maybe a Doomscar. Alright, so we do well in the mirror matches here. We just don't do well against those Planeswalker type decks that get us there with the board sweepers and all the major removal control type decks. So, alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next matchup here. Alright, another opponent to the arena with a nice big serrated sword, or a little pointy sword there. Pointy ninja sword, that's what I'll call it. Okay, so... Just adjusting my mic slightly. There we go. Alright, so we have a good turn 1 into turn 2 play here, so we can turn 1 veteran, then pump up with it on turn 2 with the aspirant, and then we have some removal in hand. Yep, I say this is a keep. Okay, so let's go ahead and play out, I think, white mana here. Another veteran's not too bad. Turn 3, we can play out an aspirant and a veteran in the same turn. Looks like it's probably like a white-red aggro deck, if I would be guessing. With an aspirant to pump up creatures for aggro. Maybe it's like a +1/+1 counter type deck with like a Thundering Raiju to get in there for big damage on turn 4 or something. Okay, so yeah, I don't have anything that I can discard to get rid of it with March of Wretched Sorrow, so I think I'm just gonna have to go ahead and do... I mean, I have double whites. Let's go ahead and just do... let's do red mana for now. I can decide on what mana that I want to get out. Attack in if they trade, then I'm more than happy with that. More adjusting of my microphone there. Not sure if you heard any of the vibrations. So. And of course, removal. Always the removal. But we can get it back here with the good old disturb value, so it's not too shabby. So I guess, yeah, I guess we want to go ahead and do March of Wretched Sorrow at this point and deal damage, but I guess I should have put out the white mana though, because then I can do Luminarch Veteran into Voice of the Blessed. Yeah, that might have been better actually. Oh well, let's go ahead and just do the March of Wretched Sorrow now before they can get more value off of the Luminarch Aspirant. Oh, well, I really goofed that one up there. I forgot. Oh man. Your good old boy Ryan here is not doing so well today. I'm sorry. It's a bit late in the evening. I forgot that it was March of Wretched Sorrow and not the March of Otherworldly Light. So I'm really just making some bad plays today and making some mistakes. Good old pal Ryan here. Just making mistakes. Okay, so if I do this now, I can do Luminarch Veteran, or I guess it doesn't really matter too much. Let's just do this one because we make best use of mana. And at least now I'm protected against removal somewhat as far as getting value if a creature leaves the battlefield, so... yeah, definitely looking like white-red aggro. Looks like a day-night cycle that's going to be going on here with their Cavalier. But yeah, generally it's just like a white-red aggro deck. Yeah, Thundering Raiju as I thought. Farewell is probably going to have to do something for us here to stabilize things. I mean, I guess we at least gain some life if we do things this way. That has trample, so we're not going to block that. Let's do this. Let's gain some life by the aspirant dying. So we can buy ourselves a bit of time, and then if we're lucky, we can end up with Farewell to clear the board out. So if I want to do Farewell, it means I don't want to do anything this turn. I just want to chump block. Yep, I think that's what we're going to have to do. We just have to chump block. They probably do it on the Cavalier, I would think. I was wrong. I would assume they would put it on the trample creature, but I guess that's okay too. So Hopefully they play out their hand here, and then I can farewell next turn. Okay, awesome. That's channel. This is Den of the Bugbear, so they can potentially play that. Alright, now they're going to do the counter on the Cavalier. So let's just buy ourselves some time, and then if we draw a land, we can farewell. Oh, that was a terrible draw. Oh, man. I really needed a land there if I wanted to have a chance, because now this is going to pump a creature, and it might have haste. Sunrise Cavalier has trample. I really needed a land there, and I didn't get it. So, I mean, their hand is cleared out. That's great and all, but we really, really, really needed to get the land. I'm just doing this because it's just better to chump block with this, and I can pay the disturb at some point. So. Yep, I think they're going to get there with their trampling creature, and yeah, that's going to kill us exactly, so. Yep, GG's. That's the way it goes. What happened there? Well, I guess I thought they were going to be able to get in for lethal there. I don't know what happened. Okay, well, I must have misunderstood the situation there. We still didn't draw what we needed, but yeah, I think we're just going to GG's here. We can't really win this game, so. Yeah, we had 2 draw steps to get the mana that we needed to potentially stabilize, and we just didn't get it, so. Farewell could have saved the game for us, but if we didn't get the mana, then oh well. So, alright, so let's go ahead and do 1 or 2 more games, and then I'll go ahead and bring it to the conclusion of the video here. Swipe, huh? Wonder which direction they like to swipe on the dating apps or stuff like that. Anyway, enough of talking about the random Magic player's love life. Let's go ahead and see the opening hand. We do have white and black mana as well as some green here. So yeah, we don't have the double white, but March of Wretched Sorrow, we can potentially make use of that if we really need to. I guess turn 2 Priest into turn 3 Aspirant is still not bad, so let's go and keep this. We don't have a turn 1 play, so let's just go ahead and do this. We could have done the black mana first, but because then we could have dealt with a 1-drop with the March of Wretched Sorrow if we really wanted to, but I don't think that we want to discard our action at this point, so let's go ahead and do this. Turn to Null Priest, that's going to get in for, I would assume, 3 damage next turn unless they have removal, which it seems lots of decks these days do. So they chose the blue mana here, so it could be another white, black, and blue deck here with a... what could they foretell? They could foretell Doomscar, they could foretell... You Saw It Coming. They could foretell maybe a Poison the Cup in this kind of deck would also be viable. Let's go ahead and play out the land. I think double white's what we want, and then I mean I think that we still play out the Aspirant here. That's still the best thing to do. Get in for the lifelink. And then if they do have removal, or if they do have a Doomscar or something like that, then at least they're gonna, you know, they'll kill 2 creatures with a Doomscar. I'll have to live with that if that's what they do. I guess they Celestis, okay, so I'm not playing out whatever they foretell just yet, so I think I'm okay just leaving that on the field. Another mana is actually quite great. Let's get this out for double black if we need it. And then March of Wretched Sorrow doesn't really do anything, so we can do 2 Null Priests pre-combat. We could also flash out Wandering Emperor next turn, but I think we just play this out now. We get some more lifelink going, and if they have a Doomscar in their hand, I want to do this now. Get some value off of it. So that way Doomscar would kill my creatures, but not the Wandering Emperor, and then I can pump up these Null Priests that are in my hand at some point, so... Yep, it was Doomscar. Alright, so now I have 2 Null Priests that I can do stuff with, or I can just do the March of Wretched Sorrow on the Celestis now, and hope I can draw some mana to do Kicker with the Null Priest. I think I'm actually okay with that here. Let's go ahead and do March of Wretched Sorrow. Well, never mind. I keep on forgetting that this is March of Wretched Sorrow, not the March of Otherworldly Light, so I can't deal with the Celestis right now. I keep on fumbling up with my brain farts here, so forgive me. So let's just go ahead and play out both of these then. I think that's the right thing to do. Let's just get these 2 things out onto the field. And if they have another board sweeper, so be it, but let's just do what we can right now to get as much value. Yeah, another board sweeper does get us, and we probably lose the game in that case, but if they don't have a board sweeper this turn, or multifaceted removal, okay, so they have another board sweeper. Vanishing Verse doesn't deal with the Celestis, so let's go ahead and make a creature then. So they've been able to just buy time here and loot through the deck with the Celestis. Hallowed Haunting, okay. So we'll probably Vanishing Verse that one. Let's get rid of that. It's still going to get the trigger, I believe, but at the very least we just get rid of it. And then let's just go ahead and deal with this while they're tapped out. Let's do X2 so we can gain some more life. Deal with this little sucker now, so it can't go bigger with more spirits on the field. Okay, so we can't really Sacred Fire right now. Let's just go ahead and do Pump with you. Get the Samurai in there. Can't really Sacred Fire just yet, but I'm hoping to just pump in enough damage here to where we can just hopefully win. Righteous Valkyrie would be a good draw since we have lots of life. Another Hallowed Haunting. Yep, so it's looking like a big value enchantment artifact sort of deck. Just get out lots of the sort of rare, mythic, rare effects here type things, and get in there with creatures that come out from the multifaceted cards, basically, so... Well, that's not bad. Let's go ahead and do this with the Samurai and see if they chump. They do? Okay. And then we'll play this out, and unless the one card that they have in hand is another board sweeper, we might be in okay shape. Looks like they drew something here. because they're looking at their lands and all their stuff, so... Okay, so that. And I guess they get the value off of the world tree there. 2 damage to 1 target creature. Alright, so that kind of sucked. If I could have done Sacred Fire in response to that, then that would have gone a lot better, obviously, but that's the way it goes. I still can get in there with my Samurai token and make it a 5/5. Their card draw, though, is probably going to make this game unwinnable, though. Let's just do this with the Vigilance creature and get in there. They might just take it, too, and save their creatures. Okay, so they're going to do that. Since the Samurai has first strike, the combat tricks aren't really going to get there for them, so... Finding the Old Gods is probably going to take care of the Wandering Emperor. Yep. Yep, so I think that's probably GG's unless we draw a Farewell here of our own to clear the entire board. Yep, that's not what we wanted to draw. So basically I'm just banking on them playing out their hand and us drawing a Farewell and stabilizing the game and kind of reformatting the game and making it to where if they play out absolutely everything, then I could still get there. Alright, so I'm happy that they're playing out everything. Alright, so they might... We're not dead yet. So it's Farewell or bust here. Farewell is the only thing that can get us out of this, so... Out of 44 cards, is it a Farewell? It is not. So... Farewell, the only thing that could have saved us, and we didn't draw it. So that's the way it goes, and I think we'll move on to the final game here. No, I'm only in gold tier right now, so this is what we're dealing with in gold. So there's probably so many synergy-based decks that can just remove our creatures from the field. It's a very creature-heavy deck, so anything that's like a removal heavy, board sweeper heavy, they can kind of get us a bit. So alright, so let's move on to the final game here, and I'll see you guys then. Alright, final game for the video. Let's see if we can go out on a high note against the very interesting looking avatar there with interesting clothing. Okay, so we have most of the mana that we would need. We have black, white, and red, so this is a decent hand. We don't have the double white, but I think it is a keep. We can, on the draw, we can potentially draw into some double white or some white mana here, so could be a mirror matchup. That was a pretty bad draw, but I'm just going to hope for the best here. I think that we go ahead and play out this, I would guess. And then, depending on what we draw for land, if we draw a land, we can decide what we want to play out for those. Looking like it's probably an angel deck. I would have to imagine it is an angel deck, and those angel decks are part of the reason why I don't have power word kill in my cleric deck here. Even though it's great removal, instant speed against angel decks, it is basically useless. So even though you can discard it to the March of Wretched Sorrow, you don't really get much value out of it. So no double white. I guess we just do... I think we do red mana here, actually. Let's do the red mana now. And do the Sacred Fire before they can do anything here with this. Get it out. get it off the field now before they can get the +1/+1 counter things going with the value there, so. And still no double red, or not double red, double white. I am misspeaking a lot this time around. Alright, so let's get this out there. Could die to removal. They might have enchantment-based removal in their angel deck, so could be a target of that, but if it is, there's not much I can do, so I can attack into the Youthful Valkyrie here. Now I have my double white, so I could also just play a Legion Angel. But I can also play Cleric class. I can't level it up this turn though, so it's not really the best thing. Alright, so let's go ahead and just do this, and then we'll attack into them with the Aspirant. See if they decide to block. If they do block, I have to assume it's a combat trick or maybe a flash angel creature that can block it and prevent the damage with the +1/+1 counter that would be put on it. I don't think that they would want to chump block at this stage. 3 damage might not be very consequential just yet. They have to have either a combat trick or an angel to flash in and pump it so it can block. I don't know what they're taking their time on, but it has to be one of those two things, I imagine. Maybe they have a March of Otherworldly Light and they want to decide if they want to just use it on the Aspirant right now. Yeah, so they're kind of like me in these matches. Sometimes I take my time thinking through my decisions a bit long. And that's kind of why the best of 3 formats and the draft formats kind of got to me a little bit, and I lost the game because of it, so. Okay, so you decide not to block, and then I'm just going to play out the Legion Angel. And then if I don't get another white mana, then I can just play another Legion Angel out next turn. If I get another white mana, I can probably do Voice of the Blessed Cleric class, maybe. Or I can do Cleric class, level it up this turn. But what we really need is the life gain aspect, so in 2 turns I could Sacred Fire to get the life gain in there for Voice of the Blessed if it's on the field. So it's just a matter of, do I draw white mana or not? If I don't draw another white mana, then I think I just do another Legion Angel and just get in some more action. If they have like Doom Scar to clear the field, then I get got, but they would lose their own creatures. I don't know if they went AFK. I don't know if something happened on their end. Maybe they lost a connection. But usually if you lose a connection, it usually just disconnects you from the match automatically. So I think we're going to go with I guess Trelasara might be more helpful. But I guess we do have some double black with the Null Priest is double black for the kicker cost, and the I guess I have more black mana here, but no, I guess it doesn't really matter too much. I'm not going to fret over it. Double black for the Null Priest, and also double black for Crippling Fear. So let's just attack and see what happens. I think I'll do it on the flying creature here, even though they can block it. If they block it, then it means that they can't really get the +1/+1 counter value on the Valkyrie. Yeah, I think that they probably disconnected or went away from their computer or something, and they forgot to cancel the match and concede. So I'm not going to pause the recording here. I'm just giving you guys the sort of raw version of what these matches are like in the middle of it. So, and I'll just go ahead and talk to pass the time. But yeah, sometimes an opponent might disconnect from the match. Maybe they just kind of rage at their keyboard and they just, out of spite, they wait out the game. So, yep. And you automatically lose if you time out too many times in a row like that. So it's a way to deal with griefers that will just get into a match. Then maybe they might just sort of do their own rage quitting thing if they are not doing well in a match. So a way to punish people that do that is that they automatically lose if they time out like 3 times in a row, I think, without doing anything. So, yep, they might have just disconnected as well, so I have no idea what happened there. I don't want to end things on that note. It was kind of anticlimactic, so I'll do one more match to find something where an opponent actually plays through the match. So we'll do it one more time. We'll have an encore, as it were, for the Cleric deck. So I will see you guys for the encore. Let's do it. Alright, let's see if our encore can go ahead and be an eventful one where we can have a very entertaining match. And as far as opening hands go, this is actually pretty good. We don't have the double white just yet, but we have a good amount of clerics here. We can potentially discard the Voice of the Blessed. 2 March of Otherworldly Light should we need to. We can do this turn 1. I think this is a pretty good keep. And let's see if we can get there in our final match of the day. So that'll be a bit of an annoying blocker, but March of Wretched Sorrow can deal with that and pump up a Cleric of Life's Bond, so I think it's not too bad here. I think I'm just going to do this. March of Otherworldly Light can deal with it too, and since it exiles, it doesn't get the -1/-1 bit on it, so... Could be just a general green-black deck that reanimates, and the Shambling Gas is a good 1-drop. Yep. It's also good in red-black sacrifice type decks, but or a blue-black zombie deck if someone tries to make that work. But in my experience, the blue-black zombie deck doesn't do quite as well in Constructed, even if you have lots of very good cards for it. So that's going to be able to destroy the Cleric class. Could March of Otherworldly Light in response, so that way they don't get the trigger of the Containment Breach. That is a consideration here. I think we'll just do this, and then... I think we just go ahead and play out the Cleric of Life's Bond for now. I think we have to get the Cleric synergies going as soon as we can. Definitely looks like a sacrifice-based deck from what I'm seeing. They might have removal for the Cleric. If so, there's not much I can do about that. See, I could have saved the March of Otherworldly Light to exile in response so that they don't get the secondary trigger, but don't think that would have been worth it there. So I think I just play another Cleric and pass, and then I can do March of Wretched Sorrow next turn on the Ghast, and then pump up both of my Clerics with that. I think no attacks. I think I just want to try and hope that they don't have removal for the Clerics, or some kind of board sweeper like Crippling Fear. Okay, so they might have some kind of pump effects for this, or ways to give it +1/+1 counters, so that way they can get more value off of that. Could discard the Wandering Emperor, but I think that maybe the Lunarch Veteran might be what I might want to discard. But then again, Wandering Emperor is not going to get out for another 2 turns. March of Wretched Sorrow wouldn't be bad here either on the Ghast, and then I can pump up both of the Clerics with that. Yeah, maybe that's actually the play. We just do this for the X1 and do it on the Ghast. And just get rid of it right now. Since I'm kind of mana starved, but I still pump up my Cleric of Light spawns, so. And they can't kill either of them, so. Well, since they didn't do the -1/-1, I'm going to attack in with both of them. And force them to lose their 2 creatures there that they can't sacrifice now, so. And they don't have any mana to do any instant speed shenanigans, so that's probably the best thing for us. We're mana starved. We at least have some action in our hands, so we can discard for the March of Otherworldly Light at the very least. If we somehow win this match with only 2 mana most of the game, then I'll be amazed, but another black mana would be okay. It's not great, but it's okay in case we draw like a Crippling Fear, or in the long run maybe we get a Null Priest kicker value. We don't have anything in the graveyard yet, but we could. So I have to decide, do I want to do March of Otherworldly Light right now and get rid of their Devil, or just attack in with the Aspirant doing stuff? I think that this is just the best thing to do. Pump up both of the Clerics. We can pump it up even more. Get in an attack. Gain some life. If they have removal for any of these, then so be it. And I'm betting that they have removal, so I'm just going to do the counter on the Aspirant. And then get in there with these 2. Because if they have removal, then one of the Clerics is going to die, and so the Aspirant being bigger means that next turn, then I have a better chance of having lethal pretty soon, so I have to assume a deck like this in black has removal. No plays. They have to have something, or they would have left the game already. So, I guess we do double white now, and then we can combat trick Wandering Emperor in response to whatever they do. Let's attack with everything. Okay, now we combat Trick Emperor and see what we do here. Now they're forced to use removal if they have it. If they don't have removal, though, they're dead, I believe. So let's do this. Force them to use it, and if not, they die. Alright, we win! Alright, so good game. Alright, so that was a bit of a quicker sort of encore finale, but we end on a high note, and we end up against an opponent that not really sure what they were doing with their deck. It's a weird mishmash of colors. Green-black certainly is a nice little synergy. Definitely looking like a sacrifice deck, but probably something where you get lots of creature tokens, you pump this thing up and you get it really big, and then you go in for lots of damage. But I'm glad that we're able to go ahead and end on a high note with our nice little Cleric deck here. Could adjust it for Historic and to make it possibly a little bit better and maybe have slightly more mana in the mana sink for it, but as is, still a really fun deck in my opinion. We didn't really have as many ways to deal with Planeswalkers. We only have the March of Wretched Sorrow and the Sacred Fire to deal with Planeswalkers, unfortunately. Farewell doesn't deal with them, neither does the Crippling Fear, so... And we don't have too much evasion in this deck, so it is kind of hard to deal with the Planeswalker heavy decks, and anything that has any kind of board sweeper to clear out 2 or 3 creatures early on and destroy your tempo can also be a bad matchup, but overall, this has been my most fun deck that I've ever played and constructed, and it's been the deck that I've had easily the most success with to this point. Next time I do a constructed deck, I'll probably go ahead and show you guys the Dragon Power deck and see how that does. Hopefully it's going to be a nice, fun little idea for the next time, but for now, I thank everyone for watching. I hope everyone had a fun time, even though it was a bit of a mixed bag with the matchups that we went up against. It was still a fun deck. I still had a fun time playing out the matches for everyone, and hope that everyone enjoyed themselves this time around. And I think the next constructed deck will be the Dragon one, and then hopefully sometime soon I'll be able to do the Dominaria format for some future draft videos. So hope everyone joins me for all the good fun next time, and as always, take care.